Subtitle recognition failed. To master the divine art, one must first castrate oneself. Starting off with a technique in art like this, what would you do? My name is Shen Tian. I inexplicably crossed over into the body of this unlucky guy who shares the same name. The original host was the 13th prince of the great empire, whose mother died during childbirth on the day he was born. At the age of 6, the original owner raised a beautiful spiritual pet, the flame spirit bird, which ended up drowning in the imperial garden. At 8, he planted a precious purple dream ephemeral flower, only for it to be uprooted by mischievous children. When he was 9, he entered the Imperial Academy along with many other princes, but on the very same day, the academy burned down. By the time he was 16, he had experienced his 88th chi deviation and died on the immortal cultivation path. And now, having inherited the original owner's body, although I've gained a handsome appearance, what on earth is this thing on top of my head? But what's on top of my head is black. Could this be the legendary ominous sign of darkening between the eyebrows? Other transmigrators have golden, shining protagonist auras above their heads, but what is this thing on mine? It's even emitting black energy. I feel like going out with it might easily get me struck by lightning. I'm probably not the real protagonist, right? With this kind of misfortune halo, and I'm supposed to be cultivating immortality? One careless move and I might even choke to death while eating. So I've decided to be a couch potato for a month to recuperate. Going out is out of the question. Until I fully recover, only by staying safely in bed can I ensure my life is secure. Misfortune just can't catch up with me. However, after just one night I realized I was being too naive. No phone, no computer, not even internet. Such a life seems utterly meaningless. No, life is precious. Freedom is even more valuable. Seeing me all dressed up and ready to go out, the eunuchs and palace maids around all grew tense. They instinctively kept their distance. I also saw halos above their heads. Could this be the special ability I gained from time traveling? I noticed that their halos are actually different. The ordinary palace maids have white circles above their heads. And the halos of this supervisor and eunuch Gui are both green. People with good luck have green halos. Suddenly, I noticed a little eunuch with a red halo above his head. This mere little eunuch with such a flashy halo on his head. Could this guy be the legendary son of fate? My eyes instantly lit up and I followed right behind him. The little eunuch spotted me and immediately knelt down. I told him not to be afraid and asked for his name. But upon hearing my words, the little eunuch grew even more frightened and kowtowed several more times. Your humble servant, Qin Gao, begs for forgiveness if I have offended you, Your Highness. I stepped forward and helped him up. I looked at the halo above his head. I noticed that this halo was not only dazzlingly bright, but through it, I could actually see the imperial study of the palace and a book titled Great Flame Calendar on the shelf. Just as I was about to look further down, the scene suddenly cut off with a snap, and I gradually came back to my senses, thinking to myself that there must be a big secret hidden in the Great Flame Calendar, possibly related to Qin Gao's red halo. So I immediately headed to the imperial study. I found this Great Flame Calendar in the imperial study. This book is likely a great opportunity that belongs to Qin Gao. If I were to seize this little eunuch's opportunity, would my own chances improve? With that thought, I immediately took the book and went to the bronze mirror to see if my bad luck aura had disappeared. The result was still the same, it remained black. Could it be that I haven't truly grasped the opportunity so fate hasn't changed? It seems I must first uncover the secrets of this book. So I studied this book for 3 whole days and found that it's just an ordinary history book without any illustrations. Could it be that I'm just unlucky, so I can't uncover the secrets of this book? I refuse to believe it. I won't step out until I uncover the secrets of this book. After all, with my terrible luck, the book might just disappear if I step out. So I spent another 3 hours reading but still ended up with nothing. As Uncle Gui walked toward me, a sudden inspiration struck. Yes, since I'm having bad luck, why not try switching to someone else? So I immediately asked Uncle Gui to take a look at this book, saying that I felt there might be some opportunity hidden within it. Uncle Gui was somewhat skeptical and bluntly said that he probably wouldn't be able to find it either. As it turned out, the opportunity actually came to light. I searched for 3 days and couldn't find it, yet someone else found it with just a touch. That's just too real. Uncle Gui immediately recognized the origin of the item and congratulated me, saying, "Congratulations, Your Highness. You have found the jade slip of inheritance." Hearing this, I felt that my streak of bad luck was finally coming to an end. However, Uncle Gui reminded me, "Your Highness, look. There is also a line of small text here." Upon closer inspection, I realized it actually said, If you wish to master this supreme skill, you must castrate yourself with the blade. What kind of nonsense is this? I've been holding on to this lousy book for 3 whole days, and this is what you show me? But Uncle Gue seemed to recall something upon seeing the book's title. He then remarked, could this be the demon art created by the sunward demon sovereign, who once roamed freely across the eastern desolation? The sunward demon sovereign was indeed a peerless and fearsome figure from 3,000 years ago. Originally, he was just an ordinary low-ranking eunuch in the palace of the Eastern Great Kuan Empire, with an extremely poor aptitude for immortal cultivation. However, this man possessed great fate and by chance, discovered a long-lost fragment of the Sun Emperor's manual in the imperial study. Unfortunately, this fragment was missing the most crucial heart manual, making it impossible to cultivate normally. If an ordinary person were to force themselves to cultivate it, they would only suffer a deviation, leading to self-destruction. However, he not only possessed great fate but also immense perseverance and insight. Using himself as an experimental subject, he integrated several demon path techniques and arts, forcibly modifying the Sun Emperor's manual into a demonic version. This demonic technique not only boasts an extremely fast attack speed, it can also stir the desires and inner demons within the enemy's heart, thereby seeking weaknesses to deliver a fatal blow in one strike. It was considered one of the most bizarre evil arts of the demon path in that era. And thus, an ordinary, unremarkable little eunuch became the sunward demon sovereign. And most importantly, this technique and art has extremely low requirements for innate talent and bone structure, yet cultivates at an incredibly fast pace. Back in the day, the sunward demon sovereign, who had extremely poor innate talent and bone structure, relied on this demon technique to cultivate all the way to the nascent soul stage in just 50 years. This technique and art can truly be called a peerless demon technique. Your Highness, your luck has finally turned around. If Imperial Consort Lan were aware of this in the afterlife, she would surely rest in peace with a smile. Upon hearing Uncle Gue's words, I couldn't help but think to myself, if my mother knew I was practicing this, she might just come back to life out of sheer anger. And what the hell is smiling in the underworld? What the hell is my luck has turned around? It really goes to show, once an unlucky player, always an unlucky player. It seems my unlucky nature is beyond saving. So I thought about it. Then I handed this copy of Technique and Art to Uncle Gue, asking him to keep it safe and diligently cultivate. Uncle Gue trembled as he received the secret manual and hurriedly expressed that he was unworthy of cultivating such a peerless technique and art. Hearing this, I spread open the first page of the manual, pointed to those 8 small characters and said, if you don't practice it, then who will, should I? After hearing this, Uncle Gue reluctantly took the manual. Then he fell to his knees with a thud. With tears of gratitude he said, 20 years ago, this humble servant was falsely accused of stealing a palace treasure. It was Imperial Consort Lan who saved my life. Although this humble servant is of low status, I understand the importance of repaying kindness. Since your Highness has bestowed upon me the Sunward Demon Tome, I will practice it diligently day and night, without any neglect. I swear to heaven that as long as I have breath in me, I will protect your Highness with my life. Although I haven't practiced the Sunward Demon Tome this time, I am still plagued by misfortune. However, Uncle Gue is extremely loyal to me. He practiced the Sunward Demon Tome, which might actually help turn my luck around. Do you know what happens if a son of fate has his fate stolen? Qin Gao is in such a situation right now. Not long after I stole his fate, he was hung up and beaten by someone. It seems even his halo has dimmed considerably. So it seems I've taken a part of his fate away. But what on earth is that look in his eyes? Isn't this exactly the look of a revenge novel protagonist? The protagonist who has endured all kinds of hardships, survived great dangers, and exacted revenge on enemies, etc. Could it be that his enemy is me? No, absolutely not. I must nip this ending in the bud. Thinking this, I rushed forward immediately, stopped the eunuch who was carrying out the execution and said coldly, I'm taking him away. Upon hearing this, the eunuch trembled all over and explained. He broke the 6-leaf divine herb of the 6th prince. This is a capital offense. You dare to defy me? I wouldn't dare. It's just that the 6-leaf divine herb is, after all, one of the ingredients for refining the top-tier foundation establishment pill. Your Highness the 13th Prince, please don't make things difficult for this humble servant. Hearing his words, I also understood that for an immortal cultivator, this 6-leaf divine herb is indeed more important than a mere eunuch. After thinking it over, there's no use in making things difficult for him. So I turned to him, waved my hand and said, I see. In that case, I'll go personally to ask 6th brother for mercy. But I hadn't taken more than a few steps when it occurred to me. This sixth prince doesn't seem like an easy person to talk to. If he were to attack me directly, following the usual tropes of immortal cultivation novels, at this moment, a great battle is inevitable. With my luckless, fragile body, I'm no match at all. But since I've already said it, I have no choice but to push through. To my surprise, as soon as I reached the door and before I could say anything, a voice from inside said, "Let's skip the meeting. I'm in seclusion and cannot be disturbed." Hearing this, I was stunned. I thought the sixth prince was supposed to have a bad temper? Wasn't I supposed to face a big battle? What on earth is going on now? And at this moment, Qin Gao was also released. I couldn't help but sigh inwardly, thinking how much hatred and resentment it must take to fight like this. It's just too brutal. I decided to ask Brother Lu again if he could spare some more healing celestial herb. Just then there was a sharp whooshing sound. A Dan pill flew out from inside the house. I caught the Dan pill firmly in my hand. Then I turned toward the room and called out, "Got it, thanks, Brother Lu." But Little Lee behind me couldn't hold back any longer. "Your Highness, this rejuvenation pill is incredibly precious. How could you use it on such a lowly servant?" Hearing his words, I turned around angrily and snapped, "What, do you have a problem with that?" "I wouldn't dare." Little Lee quickly replied, "I wouldn't dare." But no sooner had I left, he began to stir up trouble with the sixth prince inside the room, saying, "Qin Gao, that servant, has committed a capital offense. Your Highness is letting him off so easily. If this were to get out, I'm afraid it would damage your Highness's dignity." Upon hearing this, the sixth prince inside the room said with a proud expression, "Compared to the long path of immortal cultivation, worldly disputes and royal prestige are but fleeting clouds. Why bother? I am on the verge of foundation establishment. Once successful, I can be accepted into the great white celestial grotto, and from then on my path to immortality will be smooth and limitless. At this critical moment, it's not appropriate to have conflicts with him." To put it bluntly, he was worried that I might pass on bad luck to him, causing his breakthrough to fail. Little Lee immediately understood and quickly started flattering him. At this moment I looked at Qin Gao on the bed, unsure of how to deal with him. Such people with their own protagonist aura also come with a natural hatred aura. If they don't bring misfortune to their parents, masters, or sect, can they even be called the protagonist template? Such a thing absolutely must not happen. I can't let him be the death of me. At this moment the awakened Qin Gao saw me, his eyes shining brightly as he stared at me, and he even started to stammer a bit when speaking. Then, seeing me personally feed him medicine, that really left him at a loss for what to do. He looked at me with a bewildered expression and asked why I was saving him. I first forced the Dan pill into his mouth. Then I waved my hand and said, "Because you and I are connected by fate. From now on you will stay at Orchid Heart Palace. There's no need for you to work. Just stay here quietly and be available whenever I need to find you." Upon hearing my words, Qin Gao was completely stunned, but his mind had already wandered to the wrong place. The prince wants to be able to find me any time? At the thought of this, he immediately broke down and burst into tears. He quickly hugged his head, crying and shouting, "This servant cannot do it." I was also a bit stunned by his reaction, completely clueless about what was going through his mind. But I still turned to Uncle Gue and instructed, "Later, make a copy of the Qi refining chapter from the Sunward Demon Tome for little Gao to cultivate. Also, go prepare a room for little Gao in the courtyard." After hearing my arrangements, Qin Gao immediately knelt and said, "Thank you, Your Highness. This servant will surely serve you faithfully, repaying your kindness even as an ox or a horse." Seeing this, I quickly urged him to lie back on the bed. At the same time, I began to ponder in my heart. After all, the Sunward Demon Tome was originally his destined opportunity. I was merely doing him a favor in passing. If he truly rises to power in the future, it would be good to have another ally to rely on. But as soon as this thought crossed my mind, the halo above Qin Gao's head began to shine brightly once again, and it even turned a deeper shade of red. At that thought, I quickly picked up a mirror to take a look. Indeed, my unlucky aura has dimmed quite a bit. Is it because I returned the opportunity to Qin Gao or shared it with him? Seems I still need to verify it. So I turned to Uncle Gue and said, "Forget it, Uncle Gue. It's better not to pass on the Sunward Demon Tome." Sure enough, as soon as I finished speaking, the halo above Qin Gao's head faded, and the halo above my head also returned to its original state. Then I turned my head and said, "I've thought about it and I'll still pass it on." As expected, just as I had thought, the halo above Qin Gao's head grew brighter because of this. Uncle Gue looked speechless, while Qin Gao was so frightened by me that he broke out in a cold sweat. I conducted a series of repeated side-to-side jumping experiments. I finally mastered the use of this halo. But this also terrified Qin Gao, making him tremble uncontrollably. He quickly expressed that, "Your Highness, perhaps it's better not to teach it after all." I glared at him sternly with a straight face. I patted him on the shoulder and said, "Teach. It must be taught. Not only will I teach you the Qi refining chapter, but I will also pass on to you the subsequent foundation establishment chapter, golden core chapter, and nascent soul chapter." Hearing my words, Qin Gao still dared not accept. And I pointed at him and scolded, "Your life was saved by me, Your Highness. You are not allowed to refuse or I will end you." As soon as the words fell, the halo above Qin Gao's head radiated a brilliant light. Is this the halo leveling up? Could this be the right way to enhance fate? His fate can improve, my fate can improve, even Uncle Gui's fate can improve. Indeed, the halo above my head has also upgraded to a dark red. Damn, after all this hard work I finally see hope. Seeing me suddenly burst into tears of joy, Qin Gao and Uncle Gui beside me were completely bewildered. Qin Gao even awkwardly said, "Your Highness, please don't cry. I'll practice, all right? Rest assured, I will work hard and strive for it." That's more like it. Besides, I wasn't crying, it was excitement. Uncle Gui looked at me, somewhat at a loss. Although he didn't understand why I was so excited, as long as it wasn't a case of going berserk, it was fine. And having found the solution, I felt as if the sunlight had become even brighter. However, with my current fate, I definitely cannot recklessly cultivate. It seems I can only seek the assistance of more people of great fate. But I'm so damn unlucky. I've been searching for days and haven't found a single one. Then, while I was wandering around the palace, I suddenly noticed something in a little palace mate's fate aura. It seems this little palace mate has the chance to pick up this luminous pearl. Thinking of this, I picked up the luminous pearl in advance and gave it to the maid. This caused the maid's aura to directly upgrade to a light green. This seems to remind me of a shortcut to enhance fate. I grabbed Uncle Gui and little Gao, and we immediately headed to the Myriad Spirits Garden. Speaking of the Myriad Spirits Garden, one must mention the spiritual stones that can enhance the cultivation speed of us immortal cultivators. The Myriad Spirits Garden is the largest trading venue for them, and also a place filled with limitless possibilities and opportunities. The most important thing is that there is a game here for gambling on spiritual ore. It can be said that one cut leads to heaven, another to hell. Uncle Gui is panicking like crazy, but who am I? This young master is betting that when fate arrives at the trading venue, he'll see the look in these people's eyes. I feel a chill running down my spine. Just at that moment, Tiny Spiritual Fairy appeared here. Who is Tiny Spiritual Fairy? She is the most incredible spiritual vein master, and just look at those long legs and that curvaceous figure. The pose she strikes is simply captivating. If you marry Tiny Spiritual Fairy, not only will you have a beauty in your arms, but you'll also never have to worry about spiritual stones for the rest of your life. But why can't I see her opportunity? Logically, if she were truly that divine, there should definitely be something displayed above her head. Could it be that she has no opportunity or is simply out of luck with good minds today? Could it be that my ability has failed? No way. I need to go and see to check if this Tiny Spiritual Fairy is indeed the person I'm looking for. But when I saw those big sparkling eyes, the crescent moon-like willow leaf eyebrows, and that delicate flawless complexion, I was convinced. A woman like this should only exist in heaven. A single glance back and a smile reveals 100 charms. The ancients truly did not deceive me. And right away, Tiny Spiritual Fairy went to ask the boss to open a spiritual oregon. The boss looked reluctant and whispered to Tiny Spiritual Fairy, "Last time you extracted an exquisite cauldron, which made my heart ache for half a month. Please, Fairy, go easy on me." Tiny Spiritual Fairy, however, said loudly in dissatisfaction, "How could the boss open the door for business and not welcome me?" This stirred up everyone's anger, and with public outrage being hard to defy, the boss had no choice but to give up. He, indeed, worthy of being my Tiny Spiritual Fairy. Her eyes gleamed with a golden light as they opened. She swung the hammer down with a single blow. The dazzling green light instantly blinded my titanium alloy eyes. It's green, it struck green. This isn't jadeite, you know. It's a rough spiritual stone worth 800 to 1,200 spiritual crystals. But why did the Tiny Spiritual Fairy add that line before cutting it? Once chosen, payment and goods are settled. Whether you profit or lose, no refunds or exchanges are allowed. Even though I'm quite shocked too. But perhaps this is her true capability, not just luck in mining. Then, Tiny Spiritual Fairy sold the rough draft to the boss for 8 million. Everyone was watching with mouths watering. At the very end, tiny spiritual fairy added fuel to the fire. Boss Song, the quality of this batch of goods is really high. However, spiritual fairy once vowed to only open one stone per day. This might even lead to a great opportunity. As soon as these words were spoken, the entire venue erupted. Just look at this incredible atmosphere. And I stared at her retreating figure, pondering why I couldn't see her opportunities despite her remarkable abilities. I felt there must be something unusual about it. Uncle Gue, watching from the side, kept egging me on, saying if I liked her I should hurry and catch up. Yes, yes, Chin Gao also chimed in repeatedly from the sidelines. I was speechless. Damn it, these two guys have turned into onlookers enjoying the drama. I snapped my fan shut. What kind of person do you take me for? How could I possibly stalk a young lady? But then Uncle Gue said that it seemed there was a sneaky villain was following Miss Tiny Spiritual Fairy. Oh, I see. Isn't this a standard novel trope? The villain kidnaps the beautiful girl. The male protagonist descends from the sky, beats up the villain, and then the beautiful girl offers herself to him. From then on, the male protagonist reaches the peak of his life. Protagonist's halo. Wow. Isn't this the great fate-bearer's halo I've been looking for? Let's go. Now we'll chase after them. Right after we set up our ambush. Tiny Spiritual Fairy happened to pass by the small alley. At that moment, a villain suddenly descended from above, blocking Tiny Spiritual Fairy's path. With a slight curl of his lips, he raised his hand and said, "Hand it over." Chin Gao, seeing this, asked me excitedly, "Should we make a move now?" I immediately scolded, "Foolish. Now I just need to wait quietly. What I'm waiting for is the great fate-bearer, the true protagonist's appearance. I've seen wine scammers, meal scammers, but have you ever seen an or scammer? I am Shen Tian, who is under the misfortune halo, originally planning to upgrade my fate with the help of a great fate master. But I was constantly tempted by my subordinates to play the hero and save the beauty. I'm speechless too. I could only helplessly explain that they were only after money, not taking advantage of anyone. Just then the robber said, "Spend the night with me, and I'll give you this whole bag of spiritual stones." Finally, a robbery for lust has appeared. My two subordinates are even more excited than I am, leaving me with no choice but to sigh in resignation. At the same time, I'm secretly anxious about why the male lead of the grand fate hasn't arrived yet. Tiny Spiritual Fairy, upon hearing the robber's words, angrily threw the entire bag of spiritual stones at him. "Nanny, don't you even resist a little?" Then Tiny Spiritual Fairy was about to turn around and leave. Wow, what's going on? Why isn't the male lead even given a chance to appear? Seems I have to step in myself. How dare you, scoundrel? In broad daylight, you dare to harass a respectable woman. Then I said in a very pretentious manner, "Miss, rest assured. As long as I'm here, I won't let this scoundrel harm a single hair on your head." The Tiny Spiritual Fairy behind me was completely stunned on the spot. Even the scoundrel felt baffled and looked utterly confused. But Tiny Spiritual Fairy, ungrateful, cried out loudly, "Where do I resemble a woman?" Embarrassed, I quickly said, "Miss, please don't focus on these details." However, when I pointed at the robber to ask for the return of the spiritual stone, but the Tiny Spiritual Fairy grabbed my hand and said, "Don't meddle in other people's business." As an immortal cultivator, how could I stand by and watch someone die? I declared righteously. The bandit, baffled, immediately entered a combat stance. Flames erupted all over his body as he charged towards me. Wow, this guy is actually at the chi refining stage. But would I be afraid? Just trash, that's all, Uncle Gue. Uncle Gue swiftly dodged and immediately entered combat mode as well. He unleashed a Kamehameha wave and knocked the robber to the ground. Then he kicked the robber flying, followed by a series of punches and kicks. In the end, he knocked out the robber to end the fight. Truly worthy of the name Uncle Gue with a fiercer flame. And only then did I realize how terrifying the sunward demon tome truly was. Then I calmly said, "Miss, you are safe now." Then I somewhat embarrassingly tried to claim credit from Tiny Spiritual Fairy, but she completely ignored me and hurriedly ran up to the robber asking, "Are you okay?" Yet, even though the robber was swollen like this, he still threatened to get revenge on me. Can I let him get away with it? I immediately wanted to continue teaching him a lesson. Tiny Spiritual Fairy was so frightened that she immediately stopped me. She even begged me to let him go. "This fucking pervert just harassed you and you want me to let him go? Are you out of your mind? Is this the legendary doormat saintess or something?" At this moment, Tiny Spiritual Fairy finally couldn't hold it in anymore. She sighed and said, "Actually, I am an or scammer." "What? Or scammer? The clown has been me all along. My name is Shen Tian. How unlucky am I, with this unlucky aura hanging over me? The first technique in art I find right at the start requires self-castration. While searching for ways to upgrade my fate, I ended up encountering an or scammer instead. Hehe, the key is they started fighting among themselves first. You suggest I team up with various shop owners to put on a show to attract customers. I said it was your damn dad who asked me to go over and be a scammer. Alright, I'm mentally broken. Wasted my expression. Leaving. But this guy actually tried to stop me from leaving. What's worse, he even demanded compensation. Before I could even react, Uncle Gue immediately. Stretching his limbs, he said, "Your Highness, should we silence him for good? Is it really that terrifying?" Even tiny spiritual fairy was completely stunned. She cautiously said, is silencing me really necessary? I still want to keep working with shopkeeper song. Alright, today was just a misunderstanding. I thought you were teasing a virtuous matron, so... No, a maiden. I am a young maiden. You tease a respectable young maiden, and deserve a beating for it. Then I struck a flashy knightly pose and said, "Consider this a free lesson from me on your father's behalf today. We're even now, alright?" Huh, what kind of nonsense is this? What? But the resentment deep in this kid's eyes. It seems he's still not convinced. Tiny spiritual fairy, watching from the side, had stars in her eyes and murmured in admiration. So cool. And I thought to myself, it seems I can only use the final move now. I am His Highness, the 6th Prince of the Great Empire Shen Ao. From now on, I will protect tiny spiritual fairy. None of you are allowed to bully her. If anyone has any objections, you are welcome to come to the palace to find me at any time. Look at their stunned expressions. Damn, it seems that 6th brother's status really comes in handy. If I had introduced myself, I probably would have become the butt of their jokes. Just thinking about it makes me feel a bit down again. Both of them comforted me, saying it was just an accident. But was it really an accident? Uncle Gue himself doesn't believe it. Wait. Although my plan A failed. But I can still carry out plan B, hehe. When we come to the myriad spirits garden again, sitting on the bench, putting on the fake beard. My little stall is now open. This humble Taoist is from Mount Akina Secret Cave. Disciple of the Heavenly Secrets Venerable Shen Op. I have been sent down the mountain by my master to gain experience and search for spiritual veins and minerals for those destined to meet me. I guarantee that every time a spiritual stone will be found, and I will not take a single penny, giving it all to the destined person. I even came up with an advertising slogan myself. Follow this humble Taoist and buy spiritual ore. Next year your immortal villa comes with a seaside view. And my 2 subordinates were whispering on the side. Qin Gao murmured secretly. Given His Highness's fate, he is bound to fail in finding the spiritual vein. Meanwhile, Uncle Gue automatically imagined to himself, in that case, wouldn't the spiritual veins not chosen by His Highness have a higher chance of producing spiritual stones? Could it be that he's going against the norm? This move is brilliant. His Highness is truly clever. Qin Gao suddenly realized, I had no idea these two had such wild imaginations. At that moment, a middle-aged man ran over and asked, "Is what you said true? Then what if I follow your advice and choose spiritual ore, but end up losing money? Are you an or scammer by any chance?" Damn it, everyone trusts that tiny spiritual fairy a real or scammer. But when it comes to me who's genuine, I get doubted instead. What a world. But I still patiently said, "Of course it's real. If a treasure is unearthed, I won't take a single penny. If nothing comes out, I'll cover all the losses." As soon as these words were spoken, the whole place exploded. The middle-aged man instantly got pumped up and respectfully said, "Then I'll trouble the immortal master to help me pick a good ore." I took a look at the white halo. I shook my head directly and expressed regret, saying, "I'm afraid you and I are not fated to work together." Upon hearing this, the man thought I was a fraud and immediately flew into a rage. I simply responded calmly. I made it clear from the start that I only assist those with whom I share a spiritual connection. However, the man retorted angrily, "Just you wait, someone will deal with you sooner or later." I could only silently lament to myself that it's my own lack of opportunity. Is it really my fault? However, this minor incident did not dampen the enthusiasm of the crowd in the slightest. It even intensified further. A passerby remarked, "This Taoist only keeps repeating no predestined relationship. Could he be a fraud?" Another person then said, "I actually think this person seems like a transcendent master from beyond the mundane world. Otherwise, what would he gain by not accepting any money? That makes sense." But soon after, the management committee of the park arrived. It turned out that the middle-aged man had reported me as a fraud. And I saw this stunningly beautiful woman. I was completely stunned. At that moment, Uncle Gue solemnly reminded me, "Your Highness, this woman is at least at the foundation establishment stage. I fear I may not be her match." I just smiled faintly with confidence and said, "Hee hee. No worries." It turns out that being handsome really can be a meal ticket. The girl, who was so beautiful she seemed to be bubbling with charm, leaned in and took a careful look at me, saying, "This fellow practitioner doesn't seem like a bad person, huh?" Even the onlookers, the pretty girls, are busy agreeing, saying how could someone so handsome possibly be a fraud? That passerby uncle anxiously said, "Fairy, this person is definitely a fraud, I swear." "So confident, huh?" The woman stepped forward and said, "I am the true disciple of the great white celestial grotto Lee Lotus. May I ask, fellow cultivator, from which sect do you hail?" I clasped my hands in a slight bow. "Disciple Shun Op, under the tutelage of the heavenly secrets venerable from the secret cave of Mount Akina, greets the fairy." What the heck? Lotus has never heard of it? The uncle continues to stir things up on the side. Yet I simply said calmly, "My master prefers to live alone in one room and doesn't enjoy interacting with others. So fellow Taoist, do you truly possess the art of seeking spirits and severing meridians? How can you prove it?" "As genuine as can be, fairy. If you are willing, this humble Taoist will find a spiritual ore for fairy. Open it and you shall see. Didn't you say that for those without fate even 10,000 gold is worthless?" Hee naturally, it's because fairy and this humble Taoist are fated to meet. Wow, is this for real? Even the girl listening blushed. The onlookers around weren't happy about it. The girl just coughed lightly and said, "Fellow cultivator said there is a predestined connection with Lotus, is that true?" After receiving my affirmative reply, the girl was completely captivated, as if falling in love. She relied on intuition to conclude that I wasn't lying, turned around and immediately scolded, "Why are you falsely accusing him? It turns out that being handsome really allows you to do whatever you want." Meanwhile, the girl's subordinate was sweating profusely and said, "Miss, we shouldn't be so hasty before things are clarified." Then they also said to me, "Since you claim to have a connection with Miss Lotus, if you, fellow practitioner, can find 3 pieces of ore for Miss Lotus, and the value of the spiritual stones extracted is more than double the cost of the purchased ores, then our law enforcement team will naturally ensure justice is served for you, fellow cultivator." After hearing this, I shook my head and said, "I'm afraid that won't do. Although Fairy and I are connected by fate, I can only help Fairy choose 1 piece of ore." Then I looked up and said with an air of pretentiousness, "The heavenly Tao is orderly. All things follow their bounds. Words must not be uttered to the end. Blessings must not be exhausted. In all extremes, fate will surely run its course early." As soon as I dropped this pretentious line, all the girls instantly turned into die-hard fans, and even Lee Lotus became completely infatuated. Uncle Gue repeatedly urged me to pick a few more spiritual stones to win the girls' favor. Of course I fucking want to. The problem is, there's only one fate scene in her aura, isn't there? Amid everyone's doubts, I grabbed Lee Lotus and left, arriving at Spirit Sanctuary. The innkeeper saw us and still wanted to express a grand welcome ceremony. I didn't even bother to acknowledge him and directly ignored him. Then he went on with a bunch of nonsense about Ultraman Avatar Armor Warrior Dragon Knight. What the hell is this? But Lee Lotus was still busy defending me, saying it might be some kind of secret technique or spell. As long as I don't feel awkward. Then it's others who feel awkward. Finally, I opened my eyes and pointed with my hand. "That's the one. Wow, damn. Are you sure you didn't make a mistake?" I was completely baffled. So this stone is called Purple Blue Immortal Gourd. It was once the treasure of the Spirit Sanctuary. Its unearthing shook the entire Myriad Spirits Garden. It was even fiercely competed for by the high officials and nobles of the entire Great Empire. The price once soared to its peak. However, after being inspected by the spiritual vein master, it was discovered that this spiritual ore is indeed a great artifact of the immortal path. But the original essence within it has been completely depleted, meaning this thing is utterly worthless. Could it be that my skills have failed again? I stared at this piece of spiritual stone ore, lost in thought. Passerby said no one would even want this thing for 10,000 spiritual stones. Passerby kept jeering and mocking, and it almost escalated to personal attacks in the end. But Lotus Girl defended me on the side, saying, "Even spiritual vein masters can make mistakes sometimes." Then she also asked me to try another one. Damn, this girl is really looking out for me. Alright then, let's do it. The choice I've made, let's just go for it. But the law enforcement officers nearby were furious. While trying to persuade the Lotus girl, they said, "This costs 100,000 spirit stones, you know." They also threatened me, saying, "Getting involved with this 100,000 spirit stones could land you in prison for life." But would I be afraid? Not a chance. Just then an old man walked in. Hearing that what I wanted to open was the opportunity within the purple-blue immortal gourd, they showered me with a torrent of praise. Then they went on to say that this immortal gourd was born from the nirvana of a peerless immortal embryo. Only a truly destined person can discover a glimmer of life within it. Finally, she even grabbed my hand and said excitedly, "Little brother, I really regret that we didn't meet sooner." That almost made me fucking believe it. So it turns out this guy is actually the owner of this shop. I thought I had met a kindred spirit. But the boss's series of bizarre actions really got the onlookers riled up. Everyone thought I was not only a fraud but also an scammer. This scared the boss into quickly explaining non-stop. In the end, he even swore on his character that he had never known me before. And I just calmly said, if I were really in cahoots with shopkeeper Liu, why wouldn't I forge a few orders of explosive minerals to attract more customers? And I wouldn't be foolish enough to go to the law enforcement team and offer myself as an easy target, would I? At this moment, a contrarian jumped out and asked, "How can you prove it?" I say, "I'm your dad, how can you prove otherwise?" Then I clasped my hands and said calmly, "I have long said that those destined shall receive it without charge." Yet I still believe there is a great opportunity within this ore. Such calm and confident words made the girl admire him to the extreme. She believed me without hesitation. Upon realizing she didn't have enough spirit stones, she immediately pawned her personal sword to shopkeeper Liu. Although shopkeeper Liu was utterly shameless, but to show sincerity, he not only agreed to have the best stone-cutting master perform the cutting for free, he even promised that no matter what extraordinary opportunities were uncovered, he would not charge any handling fees. When the master stonecutter struck with his hammer, inside green crystals indeed appeared. Sister Lotus exclaimed excitedly, "Brother, something's coming out. Wow, your words are so easily misunderstood, okay?" But upon seeing this sparkling green gourd, shopkeeper Liu hypocritically exclaimed, "Absolutely impossible. How could this be a rotten gourd?" The crowd saw it and kept jeering and cursing, while I just calmly picked up a sword. With a single stroke of my sword, I slashed at the rotten gourd. Suddenly, golden light from within the gourd flooded the entire hall. How amazing is this treasure that glows with such dazzling green radiance? The boss watched, beating his chest and stamping his feet, weeping bitterly. Flowerlight glanced over, giving me a meaningful look full of affection and tenderness. Who could possibly resist that? It turns out this was the legendary 7 Treasures Immortal Gourd, ranked 36th on the spiritual wood ranking. When I handed the treasure to the fairy with a smile on my face, Lianhua looked at my smiling expression and gradually became mesmerized. Then I said, although this treasure is precious, it is still just a seed and needs to be nurtured. Once cultivated, it can protect your entire Great White Celestial Grotto. But Li Lotus simply doesn't care at all. Upon hearing how precious this seed is, she insisted on giving it to me. Everyone was dumbfounded upon hearing this. I fucking want it too. But with my cultivation level, I simply can't nurture this seed. So I righteously and promptly expressed my refusal. Think about it, the only consolation now is that the fate halo isn't as dark anymore. The bitterness within is something only shopkeeper Liu and I truly understand, and I keep praising shopkeeper Liu's righteous actions. I called him a true exemplar among merchants in the immortal cultivation world. This has left the onlookers utterly impressed. Shopkeeper Liu could only say with tears streaming down his face, "It's only right, this is what this old man should do." But Li Lotus insisted on giving me the immortal gourd. He even suggested cutting the gourd in half so we could each have a piece. Whoa, is she actually serious? If you cut it in half, wouldn't it just become a ladle? Thinking of this, I hurriedly advised, "Lotus Fairy, you are mistaken. The celestial seed is priceless, but fate is even more invaluable." When everyone doubted me, only Fairy firmly believed in me. Could it be that Fairy feels there is something between us? Is our fate not even worth a celestial seed? It seems that these words have caused a misunderstanding for Li Lotus. But that's not important. What matters is that she finally agreed to accept it. But at that moment, a dark mist suddenly emerged from above, and a shadowy figure charged straight toward Li Lotus. At the critical moment, a figure stepped in front of Li Lotus, blocking tons of damage. Then the two instantly exchanged hundreds if not thousands of blows. As expected of the spirit sanctuary, To actually have a true master at the early golden core stage presiding over it. Unfortunately, encountering me, the ancestor, is still a bit too inexperienced. The masked man sneered coldly. It turns out the masked man was after the celestial seed. But the man blocking the way also sneered coldly. Is that so? Then he directly unleashed his ultimate move. The yellow river rises to the heavens. One sword parting the eternal blue lotus. Instantly, the entire space was enveloped in an illusion. The masked man immediately lost control of his body and plummeted down, completely trapped in the illusion. With a sound like shattering glass, crack, the petals withered, and the entire illusory space instantly shattered and collapsed. Who exactly is this person? How could they be so terrifyingly powerful? When the purple light pierced through the entire spirit sanctuary, a seemingly cool young man stepped on the body of the evil cultivator. His name is Li Longsong, the #1 talent of the Great White Celestial Grotto, nicknamed Blue Lotus Sword Lord. He originally intended to take a sip of wine to show off his dashing heroic demeanor. But then this girl said his looks were a bit inferior to Immortal Master Brother. That man who said he doesn't like drinking, I still prefer Immortal Master Brother, the kind of handsome man. Even worse, some people say that men who drink are unreliable and have a tendency toward domestic violence. This infuriated Li Longsong so much that he literally spat blood. He thought of looking for his sister to comfort his fragile heart. But as soon as he flexed his muscles, Lotus Girl then asked him to protect me. Especially Li Lotus, who even started calling me my Shun, and Li Longsong's expression changed drastically afterward. He kept trying to persuade Li Lotus. He found that even bringing out their old boss didn't sway her. This angered Li Longsong so much that he wanted to eliminate me. Li Longsong had no choice but to forcibly drag Li Lotus away. But Li Lotus started to act coquettishly. She also said it was love at first sight for her. She even went as far as to say it's the crystallization of our destined connection. In the end, the two even started arguing. I couldn't get a single word in edgewise, damn it. In the end, the helpless Li Longsong scolded her, saying, "Have you forgotten that all those who pursued you had their legs broken by your father?" But Li Lotus retorted defiantly, "If father kills him, I'll die with him. I don't care." Damn. I hear though. But I still timidly asked, "Will he really die?" Li Longsong, however, stated, "Unless your fate is earth-shattering." I see. So with my utterly bleak fate, I must be doomed then. Thinking of this, I had no choice but to brace myself and explain. The fate I spoke of is the fate of the mind. Crystallization is merely the crystallization of fate, having nothing to do with love. However, after hearing this, Li Lotus thought it was her brother threatening me, and immediately drew her sword to threaten in return. "Brother, if you threaten my Shen again, I'll show you what it means to die." I'm stunned. Is this damn immortal cultivation world something I opened the wrong way? Not only are there scammers, but there are also crazy fanboys. I'm only meeting you for the first time, damn it. We've only been together for less than 2 hours, and from fellow cultivator to brother, and now to my Shun, it feels like we're ready to die for love already. Is being too handsome also a crime? Li Longsong found that he really couldn't win against his sister. He suddenly changed his tune and said he knew my master. What? This is fucking made up by me. Is there really a heavenly secrets venerable in this world? Then how should I continue to make up the story? But Li Longsong suddenly sent a secret message to me. He threatened me, saying, "Cooperate with me properly if you don't want to be castrated by my father." Then Li Longsong tricked Li Lotus by saying, "Heavenly Secrets True Master is a young friend of our father's." And I, under the coercion of Li Longsong, I had no choice but to grit my teeth and say it. Yes, my master often mentions Long River Sword Venerable. And Li Lotus was persuaded by Li Longsong's smooth talk. She finally stopped thinking about committing suicide for love. Then Li Longsong sincerely suggested that I return to Mount Akina to find an auspicious day to formally propose. Wow, this guy's mouth release and acting skills are truly impressive. It's a shame he didn't become an actor, but it reminds me of a sister complex and a daughter complex. Plus my unlucky aura. If I go to the Great White Celestial Grotto, wouldn't that be a sure death for me? And Li Longsong to thank me for helping Li Lotus for the favor of finding the celestial seed. He directly gifted me a Sword Master sigil. Inside it, there is not only a presence comparable to the early nascent soul stage. Inside it, there is not only a presence comparable to the early nascent soul stage, but also a sword path avatar inscribed with a formation capable of transmitting messages across thousands of miles. This is the damn good stuff. For me right now. The Sword Master sigil is much more practical than the 7 treasures immortal gourd. As long as I don't recklessly seek death, I can pretty much do whatever I want in the great empire with this external incarnation. Thinking of this, I originally intended to borrow a sword from Lee Lotus to cut my finger, and let the Sword Master sigil recognize its master by blood. As it turned out, this girl not only asked me to call her darling, but also gave me the sword directly as a token of love. Damn, who could resist this? I just wanted to perform a blood pact to claim ownership. Hey brother-in-law, your glare is way too obvious. Would you be willing to accept a spiritual weapon worth 1,000,000 spiritual stones for free? Lotus Fairy just gave it to me as a token of love. Li Longsong's heart was racing with 1,000 galloping horses. He hurriedly left with his sister in a rush. I watched as that bizarre pair of siblings finally left. I finally fucking got away. I never thought that a simple phrase like "fairy has a connection with me" could make a girl overthink endlessly. Being too handsome is indeed a crime. However, in front of the 7 treasures immortal gourd, Li Lianhua's fate halo was already pure red due to his good looks. After obtaining the gourd seed, his fate became comparable to Qin Gao's. Although Li Liansong couldn't match Li Lianhua, he still had a red halo tinged with green. Both are major figures of fate in the cultivation world, and are certainly not destined for an early demise. I hope that when we meet again in the future, I will already be the son of fate. I secretly thought to myself by that time. I hope by then your dad can't beat me anymore. I'll take this jade water sword for now. It's just that this damn jade water sword is way too heavy. I haven't even reached the chi refining stage yet, so I can't perform sword flight. But after this battle, it has made me too famous in the myriad spirits garden. It even reached the ears of shopkeeper Song and his son. It turned into me manifesting a gourd emperor, and even helping the great white celestial grotto ascend to a sanctuary. And what the hell is a gourd emperor? Are you stupid or am I stupid? Is it just Shen Ao and Shen Op perhaps? Could it be the same person? Indeed, I just got beaten up and now this happens. Could it be the Li family warning us? Young Master Song speculated. And shopkeeper Song analyzed the first possibility, that something truly extraordinary was indeed unearthed. The second possibility is that the Li family felt tiny spiritual fairies' approach to live streaming sales is quite effective. Therefore, planning to launch Shen Ao to stimulate female consumption. Wow, these two really have some wild ideas. But the only thing he's right about is that we absolutely cannot afford to offend this person. And I definitely had no idea about the chaos happening outside. I just woke up. Uncle Gue also advised me to rest a bit longer. That won't do. I have to clear the Black Ring's name as soon as possible. And looking at the efforts over the past 2 days, it's already showing results. I can see the white spots bleaching out on the Black Ring. As long as I seize a couple more big opportunities, I should be able to completely cleanse my reputation and start fresh. I need to keep working hard at my little stall. It's just that these girls are way too enthusiastic. I see this frenzy of fans that's almost like a bustling market. I was originally trying to persuade the girls to be rational about chasing stars. As a result, the younger sisters have become even more fanatical. He's so gentle. He really cares about us. Then I'd better get down to business first. Those with fate stand on the left. It's just that the girl was being all touchy-feely with me. What's that about? Flower-like, what are you doing here joining in the fun? But heaven rewards the diligent. Seeing the many chosen ones who are destined to be here. My heart is greatly comforted. Then let's go. First, to the Sky Spirit Pavilion. However, I originally only intended to select 4 people. But behind me there followed a vast army. It seems that watching the excitement is just human nature. At that moment, shopkeeper Song and his son realized that I was actually Shen Ao. As soon as I arrived, shopkeeper Song showered me with flattery. Why is this old trickster being so polite today? I just gave your son a good beating. But since you've chosen to engage in mutual flattery, let's go with it. Young Master Song couldn't hold back any longer and asked, "May I ask what guidance Immortal Master Shen has come to offer?" The female fan behind me then excitedly exclaimed, "Immortal Master is here to help us seek spirits and determine the veins." If it's a publicity stunt, shopkeeper Song responded with an awkward laugh, saying, "Welcome, welcome. Today, all ores selected by Immortal Master Shen will be offered at a 4% discount." But deep down, he thought to himself that he hadn't prepared the specially crafted spiritual ore. How could this be a publicity stunt? Could this guy really know the art of finding spiritual veins and cutting off meridians? That's really the case. Then this young man standing in the Li family would be truly remarkable. But I won't hold back with you. Since shopkeeper Song is so kind, I won't refuse. Go ahead. I have selected 4 spiritual ores. 1 strike down. Green light illuminates the entire hall. Shopkeeper Song was dumbfounded. This was worth 3,000 spiritual stones, a full 16 times the original price. The girls were equally thrilled. Shopkeeper Song ultimately spent 3,000 spiritual stones to buy it back. Seeing the 3 bags full of spiritual stones, the girls' eyes also sparkled with greed. They directly picked up 1 bag and gave it to me. She also said it was just a small token of appreciation. A token of appreciation? More like a massive one, right? I'm stunned. Have you ever seen someone practically begging to give money away? I was just about to return the spiritual stone to her. Damn, this is way too overwhelming, isn't it? Maybe I should just accept it after all? It's just that she gave way too much. But my reputation isn't solid yet. If I take the spiritual stone, wouldn't that mean going back on my word? Who would dare to come to me in the future? Thinking of this, I pushed the spiritual stone away and said righteously, "This humble Taoist has said, for those destined, I ask for nothing in return." What does this mean, sir? The young lady was so frightened that she hurriedly began to explain. One of the girls knelt down and said sincerely, "Immortal Master, you've worked so hard to help us find spiritual veins and open minds. How can we not offer any reward? Wow, girl, you haven't even started mining yet." But the girl, as if weeping and complaining, said, "Just by the Immortal Master's gaze, good ore is sure to be found. If the Immortal Master refuses to accept our kindness, I absolutely will not agree." The others, seeing this, all followed suit. Wow, are you guys serious? But could you please stand up and talk? Why the hell can't I lift this at all? The girls thought it was me. Sorry to ask for a reward, I'd like to politely decline. But damn it, it's because I have 0 cultivation level. Then a girl even helped explain, saying, "How about we consider it as a small donation of incense money to your esteemed sect?" I was just thinking about what excuse to use to accept the money. Damn, they even thought of a reason for me to take the money. Shopkeeper Song also hurriedly advised me to accept it. Fine, I'll take some then. How about taking only 10% of the payment from each? The girl cried out anxiously upon hearing this. How can 10% be enough? Shopkeeper Song takes a 10% cut, so if we only give you 10%, wouldn't that be disrespectful to the Immortal Master? Damn, even when trying to charge less, you still have to bargain. In the end, I was forced to accept only 50%. This damn plot doesn't seem right. Isn't it said that the immortal cultivation world is all about the survival of the fittest? Why do all my destined ones seem to have too many spiritual stones and insist on giving them away? But it seems that after I took half of their spiritual stones, their auras became even greener. I don't know if it's just an illusion, but the 4 girls' combined earnings reached 8,000 spiritual stones. My income for today alone exceeded 4,000 spiritual stones. I'm stunned. Shopkeeper Song and his son could hardly believe it. The kid was even staring with eyes red with envy. In the end, his father gave him a stern warning. Just as I was wondering how to take away so many spiritual stones, Shopkeeper Song promptly offered to gift me a storage ring. I teased. They gave me spiritual stones because I helped them find spiritual veins and determine their fates. Shopkeeper Song, are you giving me this because I'm handsome? But Shopkeeper Song really seized the moment and showered me with a flurry of compliments. In that case, I'll accept it. Watching my retreating figure, Shopkeeper Song secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Just as his son was full of confusion, Shopkeeper Song imagined an explanation. If my guess is correct, this probably the 6th prince of the great empire Shen Tian. The servant beside him is carrying the jade water sword of the Li family's little princess. Thinking about it this way, in the future, no matter which side we align with, we are bound to prosper and rise to prominence. After coming out, I directly gave the storage ring to Uncle Gue. Uncle Gue was immediately moved to tears, while all I could think was that I finally didn't have to use my blood anymore. After all, Swordmaster Sigil bled a whole bowl yesterday. Who could handle that if it kept going on? When I returned to the stall again, the fans were still as enthusiastic as ever. This scene is almost comparable to a talent show. I had no choice but to pick a few. Just by looking at what this girl said, it's easy to misunderstand, okay? I hurriedly brought a few people to the Wind Spirit Pavilion, picked out the ores, and with a single hammer strike. Naturally, I gained another wave of admiration from female fans. But just then a burly man suddenly stepped forward, full of disdain, and said, "What's so great about getting lucky with the ore? It's nothing compared to our tiny spiritual fairy." At that moment, A man with a brocade flag on his back and tattoos on his arms chimed in, saying the same thing. Have you ever seen a showdown between top-tier fans? You call me a lousy immortal master just trying to ride on the hype. I mock you for being jealous. I'm mocking you for being sour. It seems like the only move left for me is to make a strategic retreat. Just as I turned around, a voice called out from behind, "Tiny spiritual fairy is here." This scared me so much that I almost started trembling. But then I thought it seems she's just an scammer, so what is there to be afraid of? Thinking of this, I smiled and greeted her. But Tiny Spiritual Fairy wasn't happy. She remembered how last time he hit Young Master Song and ended up paying a hefty medical bill, almost offending the Song family. Yesterday he called himself an scammer, and now he's copying my style to promote products. Most importantly, I had already scheduled a performance and product promotion with Wind Spirit Pavilion a few days ago. Now you're here stirring up hype. Isn't that just stealing business? The more she thought about it, the more wrong she felt. Tiny Spiritual Fairy suddenly shouted, "Shun you! You jerk!" I was completely dumbfounded. But the onlookers automatically filled in the blanks. Could it be that there is a deeply unforgettable life and death romance between the two? That's why Tiny Spiritual Fairy is so coy and hesitant towards Immortal Master. It has to be said, the imagination of die-hard fans is truly vast. Quickly cut in. At that moment a woman walked out. A tall, imposing noblewoman with an awe-inspiring presence. It turned out that this person was actually the manager of Wind Spirit Pavilion. Upon seeing her, Tiny Spiritual Fairy quickly followed up and asked, "Sister Jade, didn't we agree on this a few days ago? Why did he come here?" The shopkeeper immediately said, "You've wronged me. Master Shen Immortal came on his own." Upon hearing this, Tiny Spiritual Fairy felt as if struck by lightning. "You're saying this guy is the Immortal Master?" Tiny Spiritual Fairy said in disbelief. The shopkeeper gave a definite, affirmative and final confirmation. How is this possible? Tiny Spiritual Fairy still couldn't believe it. The shopkeeper, seeing Tiny Spiritual Fairy's expression, thought there was a story between us. She kept pressing for details frantically, but she fiercely declared that meeting me was the worst luck in 8 lifetimes, which made me feel quite wronged. But then Shopkeeper Jade said, "How could that be? Having a connection with Immortal Master is something many people pray for but never get. Fate." Tiny Spiritual Fairy said disdainfully. Seeing that Tiny Spiritual Fairy didn't believe her, Shopkeeper Jade went on to tell the story of how Lee Lotus had opened the 7 Treasures Immortal Gourd and helped every destined person mine, with each outcome being no less than 1,000-fold return. Only then did Tiny Spiritual Fairy suddenly wake up to the truth. She thought about how this person was so impressive yet still chose to tease her. This made Tiny Spiritual Fairy feel even more wronged. In order to maintain her persona, she had to secretly pinch her own hand. She made an excuse that she wasn't feeling well and was about to leave, but Shopkeeper Jade said, "Today the Immortal Master came to my shop to open a mine, which might bring better traffic." These words made Tiny Spiritual Fairy completely break down. She turned her head and left in a huff. I was left utterly confused, so I politely asked what was wrong. After scolding me, she ran off feeling wronged. Indeed, it is as the ancients said, "Only women and small-minded men are hard to deal with." They truly did not deceive us. Forget it, I don't want to think about it anymore. Let's move on. Follow me. As each destined individual successfully uncovers a spiritual stone, the white area on my halo is also gradually expanding. But what on earth is this Immortal Master cult that these fanatical fans spontaneously formed? And they even set the rule of splitting profits 50-50 as a doctrine? When I returned home utterly exhausted and pushed the door open, I unexpectedly found a hazy figure sitting by the window. Turning around, Tiny Spiritual Fairy softly said, "Brother Shen, you're back. If a beautiful woman runs into your room at night, would you choose to be a playboy?" The moment I opened the door, I was stunned. This was indeed my room. Tiny Spiritual Fairy was striking an extremely enticing pose, asking me why I hadn't come in yet. Even more absurdly, she had brewed tea and was gently offering it to me. My God, what do you want to do? But Tiny Spiritual Fairy gently patted my shoulder and asked me to sit down first. I sat down in a daze, and then she offered to give me a shoulder rub, adding, "You must have expended a lot of energy just now opening that Phoenix Stone, didn't you? Weren't you gone? How did you know I opened the Phoenix Stone?" But the Tiny Spiritual Fairy coquettishly said, "I just want to see if you're really amazing or just an scammer. So you just blended into the crowd and started following me?" I recalled. So it turns out, Tiny Spiritual Fairy is blending into the crowd, always thinking about exposing my tricks. As a result, in the first hour of watching the stone, she thought I was using a sleight of hand. By the third hour, she began to realize that all the shopkeepers didn't seem to be pretending. By the fifth hour, she was completely stunned. Turns out I'm not just good, I'm fucking amazing. Gradually, she also joined my fan club under the guidance of the Atmosphere team. Then Tiny Spiritual Fairy added, I originally thought you were a scammer. But later I realized you truly have real skills. So you followed me to investigate and even came to my room to stake out. What exactly are you trying to do? I said, breaking out in a cold sweat, thinking to myself, could it be that they're after my body? But with a thump, she suddenly knelt on the ground. I was stunned. Is this woman crazy? But Tiny Spiritual Fairy sincerely said, please, Brother Shen, accept Spiritual Fairy as your disciple. Spiritual Fairy is serious. I sincerely ask Brother Shen to teach me the art of finding spirits and determining veins. I was dumbfounded again, looking at the earnest face of Tiny Spiritual Fairy. Oh my God. If she knew I was watching. If she knew I was watching others' auras to find spirits and determine veins. With her temper, wouldn't I end up in two pieces? At that thought, I decisively refused. Tiny Spiritual Fairy, upon hearing this, pitifully asked if I was rejecting her because she was ugly. Seeing this, I could only steel my heart and say, you and I were never meant to be. Tiny Spiritual Fairy, upon hearing this, completely broke down and persistently insisted on creating a connection. I could only comfort her by saying, you are so beautiful. Surely there will be other spiritual vein masters willing to take you as their disciple. But Tiny Spiritual Fairy just wouldn't agree. She also said that those old-timers are all a bunch of lecherous old men. Aren't you afraid that I might be a lecherous old man too? I said fiercely. But the Tiny Spiritual Fairy not only called me honest and kind but also gave me a good person card. I'm shattered. I'm not a good person, you know, Miss Spiritual Fairy. I am the Womanizer King. Tiny Spiritual Fairy naively asked, what is a Womanizer King? Can you eat it? I'm speechless. I can only repeatedly emphasize that I absolutely will not take you as my disciple. But Tiny Spiritual Fairy paid no heed and directly took over my bed. She even wished me good night. Then she fell asleep. I was stunned. But then I yelled urgently, even if you take over my bed, I won't take you as my apprentice. Looking at her unresponsive self, I could only turn away helplessly. At this moment, how I wish I were a true womanizer. Helpless, I could only come and sleep with Uncle Gue. But thinking it over, something didn't feel right, so I asked Uncle Gue if he had reached the Qi refining 7th layer. Upon receiving Uncle Gue's affirmative response, I questioned why he allowed the Tiny Spiritual Fairy to enter. Uncle Gue, however, claimed it was for my own good. He even said with righteous indignation, even if you are not planning to take a concubine, you could still learn to indulge in some pleasures. I'm so done with this immortal cultivation world, it's all just cliches. I'm exhausted. Let's just destroy everything and be done with it. So sharing opportunities can also enhance others' fate. When I waved my hand generously and directly gave Uncle Gue 1,000 spiritual stones I obtained from mining to cultivate with, Uncle Gue's halo above his head was strengthened once again. It seems my guess was right. But at that moment Uncle Gue suddenly made a suggestion to me. Your Highness, why not take this opportunity to cultivate the Epic Flame Manual? That's right, I actually forgot about that. After taking the manual, I said, it turns out that due to the previous owner of this body's mediocre aptitude, he could only cultivate this manual. However, cultivation consumed too many spiritual stones, which he couldn't afford back then, so the book was neglected. But with my current financial foundation, there's no need to worry. It seems that no matter where you are, getting stronger always requires spending money. Thinking of this, I immediately asked Uncle Gue to fetch me 100 spiritual stones so I could cultivate tonight. This made Uncle Gue respond with a pleased and affirmative yes. Then, he hid alone in a corner, truly overwhelmed by a mix of emotions. Imperial Consort Lawn, you may now rest in peace once more. As for me, I then sat inside the wooden tub in the room to cultivate. Thinking of this, the previous owner of this body had chosen the Golden Core Refining Qi cultivation system all 88 times they faced deviation, yet still succumbed to Qi deviation. This system is currently the most widely used cultivation system in the immortal cultivation world. It consumes fewer resources, allows for rapid cultivation progress, and enables practitioners to master a variety of esoteric arts and techniques. Hence, it is commonly referred to as the Qi cultivator path. However, I definitely cannot continue following this conventional path. In that case, I'll choose the divine demonic Qi body system, commonly known as the body cultivator path. It is said that this cultivation system was developed by ancient humans by imitating the methods of demonic beasts, directly refining the body with the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, relying on pure physical strength to defeat enemies. However, body tempering involves enduring pain that is hard for ordinary people to bear. Pain akin to having tendons pulled, bones broken, and being bitten by thousands of ants all over the body. The intense pain caused my entire body to tremble slightly. The volcanic surge in my body temperature made me feel as if I were about to explode. Finally, with a boom, flames erupted all around. But just as I felt on the verge of breaking through the restraints, everything suddenly calmed down. I could feel the enhanced power within me. I thought to myself that spending money really does have its uses. If I had spent more aggressively, I could have broken through that barrier today. Thinking of this, I immediately asked Uncle Gue to give me more spiritual stones. Meanwhile, Uncle Gue and Qin Gao were anxiously waiting outside the house. Just as Uncle Gue was still worried about whether I might have any issues, the door suddenly opened and I stepped out. The even more handsome and dashing me with 8-pack abs walked out. At that moment, I finally understood why there are so many cultivation fanatics. I feel the explosive power all over my body. It's truly exhilarating. Then I said confidently, "Come on, Uncle Gue, try to take my punch." Then I took a step forward. With extreme speed, I instantly appeared in front of Uncle Gue. In a flash, my palm collided with Uncle Gue's in a powerful clash. The fierce blast of energy caused the surroundings to instantly erupt in a blaze of flames. The speed of this punch, the power, the exhilaration, could it be the divine demonic body tempering first layer? Uncle Gue's face was filled with astonishment. What does it feel like for a body tempering first layer punch to rival the might of chi refining fourth layer? Just as I was secretly gloating, Uncle Gue couldn't help but exclaim, "This technique and art are indeed nearly invincible in close combat." Just one session of cultivation consumes so much that I can't help but feel a pang of pain. But Uncle Gue comforted me, saying, "With your Highness's ability to locate spiritual veins and sever them, are you still afraid of not earning spiritual stones?" In that case, let's go with it. Watch how I stir up the winds and clouds of this world. Just then the sky was about to light up. I was just about to take Uncle Gue out to grab a bite and continue mooching off fate. But as soon as I opened the door, cries for help came from ahead. What? It was actually Tiny Spiritual Fairy who was kidnapped. Uncle Gue anxiously asked me, "Should we chase after them?" Of course. A mere chi refining 8th layer dares to act so arrogantly in front of me. The glimpse of opportunity one just saw, though fleeting, I definitely didn't mistake it. I believe Tiny Spiritual Fairy should not be in danger. Uncle Gue, however, was relieved, thinking that I finally had someone I liked. I think this is a great opportunity, hehe. How could I not take advantage of it? The more I think about it, the harder it is to suppress the smile on my face. And the masked man, with Tiny Spiritual Fairy in tow, sped away at full throttle. Suddenly, with an urgent screech of brakes, the masked man came to a halt right at the edge of the cliff, and Uncle Gue and I had just arrived at that moment. Without a word, Uncle Gue drew the purple feather soft sword and stood in front to shield us. The masked man seemed to have been waiting specifically for us. We calmly stood our ground, and sure enough, the masked man casually tossed the Tiny Spiritual Fairy aside. He laughed heartily on the ground and said, "Even heroes find it hard to resist the charms of a beauty. Shinopi, you really caught up after all. So this kid's target is actually me." And upon hearing this, Uncle Gue flew into a rage instantly. He raised his hand, gripping his sword, and charged swiftly toward the masked man. Just as he was about to strike him down, the masked man let out a sinister laugh and arrogantly shouted, "Chi refining 7-layer can possess such lethality. Your technique and art must be quite unique, right? Hand it over." He suddenly raised a circular shield. With his full power unleashed, the ground instantly shattered. Under Uncle Gue's horrified gaze, with a loud bang, he instantly sent Uncle Gue flying. Then, crashing through layers of rock obstacles, he landed heavily on the ground. Epic Golden Core Domain. You are actually a Golden Core stage cultivator. Despicable. You deliberately concealed your cultivation level. Then, regardless of his injuries, Uncle Gue staggered forward and whispered urgently, "Your Highness, run quickly. This old servant will hold him off." And I forced myself to calm down and said, "With this person's cultivation level, we can't escape." The masked man chuckled and said, "I didn't expect you to be a sensible person, but for now, I have no intention of killing you. Moreover, I have set up the Grand Deception formation here. Anything that approaches the formation will be annihilated." Then the black-clothed figure raised his hand and clenched it. I instantly became unable to move. Then as he took out the heart-seizing Dan, he said coldly, "Since you say that I have no connection with you, then I have no choice but to force a connection." Seeking a connection? A figure in my mind gradually overlaps. It seems that last time someone already said that we are not meant to be. But that person was brimming with confidence. He claimed to be the chosen one by destiny. With a fate as dark as a lump of coal, you say? You are the guest known as Black X. That guest with a fate darker than mine. Excellent. I am the sacred cult Black X, true master sacred cult. I, the great empire, am under the jurisdiction of the Great White Celestial Grotto. And the Great White Celestial Grotto is a vassal of the epic divine sky sanctuary. It seems there is no so-called sacred cult. But after hearing this, Black X sneered coldly. What is the mere Great White Celestial Grotto compared to our sacred spirit cult? On the day our sacred spirit cult reigns supreme over the world, even the epic divine sky sanctuary could be obliterated in the blink of an eye. Damn, is this guy insane? But Uncle Guay's expression changed drastically upon hearing this. This guy is actually a follower of the evil spirit cult. It turns out that the immortal cultivation world is divided into 36 celestial grottos, 72 blessing lands, and 12 sanctuaries. These sects, although their relationships are intricate and complex, they appear relatively harmonious on the surface. Besides these sects, in the shadows, there are also some evil forces lurking. The evil spirit cult is one of the most powerful forces among them. It is said that the evil spirit cult generally cultivates by using the blood, essence, and souls of others to strengthen themselves. In short, it is extremely evil, very, very exceptionally evil. At this moment, I finally remembered. But since it's come to this, there's no other way. If your target is me, then let Uncle Guay and the tiny spiritual fairy go, how about that? But after hearing this, Black X straightforwardly said, there is only one heart-seizing Dan. Except for you, both of them must die. Then he lewdly laughed and said he would do unspeakable things to tiny spiritual fairy. Damn, this guy's villainous look is just too straightforward. Who in the world spills all their plans right from the start? Thinking of this, I even teased him, asking if he wouldn't reconsider. This guy even stubbornly said, "You're not qualified to negotiate terms with me." That sounds a bit like a classic villain line. Then I said with a smile, "Aren't you curious about where my other attendant has gone?" Black X said indifferently, "Your other attendant is no match for me either." I chuckled. "What about them?" Then dozens of law enforcement officers flew in on their swords from the sky. Formed the formation. The law enforcement team raised their swords, coalescing powerful sword chi one after another. Dozens of them together formed a massive, soaring sword chi that shot toward the sky. Under Black X's horrified gaze, the sword light instantly pierced through the formation, striking directly at Black X. At the critical moment, Black X activated the Nether Blood Hand seal, but he couldn't hold on for even 3 seconds before being instantly impaled. He was instantly defeated. At that moment, Qin Gao happened to run over excitedly. Just as Uncle Guay was wondering how Qin Gao knew we were in danger and went to seek help, I explained that I had sent Qin Gao ahead of time. This move was full of confidence and brilliant foresight. Naturally, this earned Qin Gao's full admiration once again. Uncle Guay remarked with relief from the side, "Imperial Consort Lan, you can now rest in peace," with a smile. And surprisingly, Qin Gao managed to persuade 3 captains to come out. Just as I was about to give him a thumbs up, Qin Gao said, "I just randomly found a law enforcement member." I said, "Your Highness is in danger," and they all rushed over. They also said that not too many people should be told. Otherwise, the connection might become shallow. How the hell can this be related to fate? Would you like a beautiful lady ghost as your wife? My name is Shen Tian. I thought the situation was settled. However, Black X slowly got up from the ground. He chuckled darkly, licked the blood from the corner of his mouth and said, "Do you really think I don't have any aces up my sleeve?" This instantly put me on high alert. It seems this guy really isn't easy to deal with. And at this moment, Black X took out a dark purple artifact emanating an evil aura. Hiss! Black X directly slashed his beautiful arm, and a large amount of essence blood sprayed out, permeating the air. It then gathered in the air to form a sinister curse seal, from which an evil claw emerged. This turned out to be a completely naked, evil lady ghost. And Lady Ghost once again formed hand seals to summon an evil ghost infant. At the same time the ghost infant appeared, it also materialized clothing that dressed Lady Ghost. This turned out to be the half-step nascent soul evil spirit, Nine Sun's ghost mother. However, the moment Nine Sun's ghost mother took form, she stared straight at me and laughed loudly, saying she wanted me to be the father of her children. What is this situation? Upon hearing this, Black X was overjoyed and ordered Ghost Mother to block the enforcement team. He himself captured me and allowed Ghost Mother to do whatever she pleased. Uncle Gue was also breaking out in a cold sweat, indicating that this particular magical artifact was extremely sinister. It seems very unfavorable for the person who has been targeted. Is this the great opportunity one saw? I'd rather not have it. Ghost Mother and Black X have reached an agreement at this moment. Then, with a teleportation, they appeared right in front of the enforcement team. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The enforcement team was instantly wiped out. Damn, that's way too overpowered. Can we surrender and only lose half? Meanwhile, Black X was not idle either. He dashed straight toward me with a swift movement. Uncle Gue Chin Gao and the other person immediately stepped forward to block the way. I slowly pushed the two aside and sighed helplessly, saying, "Why do you insist on forcing me to take action?" Then I slightly closed my eyes, sensing the true chi within my body. When I opened my eyes again, the surging energy within me, the true chi enveloped my entire body like flames. At that moment, Black X also dashed to my front, with powerful energy fluctuations emanating between his fists. The moment his fist came crashing down, I raised my shield. Just as my shield shattered, a blinding golden light surged from the palm of my right hand. I grinned and said, "Die!" I swung my sword and sent Black X flying with a single strike. This strike is truly terrifying, as expected of the Swordmaster sigil from the Great White Celestial Grotto. But the energy expended is really taking a toll on me. I collapsed to the ground, gasping for breath, and said, "But damn, using up a full 3,000 spiritual stones is what really hurts the most. It seems like in this immortal cultivation world, you can only survive by spending like crazy." Just as Uncle Gue was worried about whether I was okay, I staggered to my feet and said, "It's fine, Uncle Gue, I'm good. I'm all right." However, I looked at Black X lying on the ground and the magical artifact. Is this equipment dropped from killing monsters the great opportunity one saw? Have you ever flirted with Lady Ghost? Or does Lady Ghost just seem delicate and charming? My gaze returns to the rosary beads I'm staring at, lost in thought. It seems that after the death of Black X True Master, not only has the power of the rosary beads begun to weaken, even Ghost Mother seems to have suffered a heavy blow, continuously roaring in agony. Then she dissipated into nothing. After thinking it over, I decided to study it further. Immediately after, I turned around and asked Uncle Gue, "Has Tiny Spiritual Fairy woken up?" And Uncle Gue sighed, saying that Tiny Spiritual Fairy had been unconscious all along. After hearing this, I thought for a moment and said, "I understand. I'll go see her later." But these words made Uncle Gue think I cared a lot about Tiny Spiritual Fairy, and he thought to himself, if Imperial Consort Lan knew from beyond, she should bless him well. Meanwhile, I stared at this string of prayer beads thinking, I spent 3,000 spirit stones on this gotcha pull and ended up with such a thing. It's cracked and not even smooth. Feels like a huge loss. While secretly feeling the pinch, I picked up the prayer beads and started rolling them in my hand. But after just a few turns, a voice suddenly came from inside. Whoa, that scared me so much I shivered and quickly threw the prayer beads away. Then a wisp of green smoke slowly rose from the prayer beads, eventually transforming into the Ghost Mother. Oh my god. In my current state, there's no way I can defeat her. Am I about to game over? Wait. She seems to be looking even weaker. It appears she has also suffered heavy injuries. But suddenly, as if struck by a thought, I urgently shout, "Why are you out again?" I must reiterate, I have no interest in being an instant dad. After hearing this, Ghost Mother fell silent for a moment, then said shyly, "You're interrogating me like this and you still won't let me come out?" Hearing this, I was completely stunned. The prayer beads turned out to be the Nine Suns Ghost Mother's parasitic magical artifact. But suddenly it seemed like I remembered something amusing. I shook the prayer beads vigorously while grinning mischievously and asked, "Is this the way you mean to handle it?" But this made Ghost Mother instantly curl up in pain. Damn, that reaction was way too intense. Anyone who didn't know better would think I did something to you. Maybe I should try to comfort you a bit. But suddenly, Ghost Mother knelt down and said sincerely, "Thank you, Immortal Master, for using your sword to disperse the resentment and restore Niner's sanity. Niner has no way to repay you. Offering myself in marriage is definitely out of the question," I immediately clarified upon realizing. But this remark suddenly deepened Niner's resentment. Could it be that the resentment hasn't been completely severed? I raised my sword and asked, This frightened Niner into hastily explaining that there was no problem anymore. That's more like it. Meanwhile, far across the sea, the Long River Sword Lord sensed that I had used the Sword Master sigil and was furious to see what kind of person dared to take his precious daughter away. He immediately sent Xiang to the Great Empire to bring me back. And at this moment our Xiang was also. After receiving the message from the evil spirit cult and me, he read the contents of the letter and then vanished in a flash, heading straight for the Great Empire. So Lady Ghost can actually look this good? When I stared at these ghost infants again, I felt that things had taken a serious turn. Although Niner is not biologically related to them, mother and child have relied on each other for survival over the years. And because these young children were sacrificed through evil rituals, they cannot be reincarnated. For this reason, Niner grabbed the hem of my clothes, pleading desperately for me to perform rites so they could be reincarnated. She was not only willing to be a servant for eternity, but even said she would consent to being toyed with. Who the hell wants to toy with you? Bro is not that kind of person, but he's capable of doing such things. At that very moment, the ribbon covering Niner's eyes suddenly loosened, and then it slipped off and fell to the ground. Wow, damn. Are lady ghosts these days really that good looking too? I suddenly understand why so many people in ghost stories get enchanted by lady ghosts. Who could resist a lady ghost like that? Then it occurred to me that her entire family was slaughtered, and she couldn't even reincarnate. It's really quite pitiful. Thinking of this, I tugged hard at the hem of my clothes and said, "Don't worry, I will ensure these children are properly guided to the afterlife." After hearing this, Niner happily thanked me repeatedly. But as I turned to think about it, how exactly do I go about guiding them to the afterlife? I pondered, wondering if it meant guiding them through physical means. When Niner asked in confusion what physical transcendence meant, I raised my sword and said seriously, "Just like what I did earlier, one swift slash and it's done." This scared Niner into pleading desperately. It seems I also think it's unreliable. If I accidentally cut the prayer beads, you guys would be done for. Since that's the case, in that case I'll have to wear it for now and then figure out a way to help these children reincarnate. These words left Niner momentarily stunned. After she came to her senses, she couldn't hold back anymore and finally burst into tears of joy. Then I asked, "It's not going to work for you to follow me around every day like this?" But Niner excitedly expressed that she could return to the prayer beads to recuperate. She could also absorb the resentment within the prayer beads to restore herself. Damn, if she keeps absorbing resentment, won't Niner and the souls of those young children be eroded again? When the Nine Sons' ghost mother reappears in the world, won't I be the first to bite the dust? Thinking of this, I broke out in a cold sweat and asked, "Can you recover by absorbing the spiritual stone?" Niner happily said, "Of course we can." Then she nestled into the spiritual stone pouch, gazing at the bag in her hand. I breathed a sigh of relief. This is finally temporarily resolved. At this moment Uncle Gue also walked in. Upon learning that I had subdued Niner, he secretly thought excitedly that there wasn't much difference between Lady Ghost and a woman with the lights off, especially when he imagined again that Imperial Consort Lon would definitely rest in peace with a smile upon knowing this. He truly is a talent. Then the scene shifts, as the evil spirit cult senses the fading aura on Black X's soul token. Although he found it a bit hard to believe, he immediately dispatched Black W to investigate. He also mentioned that if possible, they should recruit the sixth prince of the Great Empire into the sect. And my sixth brother just happened to break through to the Foundation establishment stage at that moment. He was secretly excited and preparing to get a gift for apprenticeship at the Myriad Spirits Garden, but then he remembered that I had already visited the Myriad Spirits Garden. He could only sigh to himself, hoping that my bad luck wouldn't affect his fate. Meanwhile, reminded by Uncle Gue, I had just arrived in front of Tiny Spiritual Fairy's bed. I was secretly worrying about what to do when Uncle Gue then claimed he had a solution. Under my skeptical gaze, Uncle Gue directly took out a silver needle. To prove my innocence, I jumped off the cliff. Tiny Spiritual Fairy was so heartbroken that it felt as if her liver and intestines were torn apart. The perspective returns to the moment before Uncle Gue inserted the silver needle. I stopped him just in time. I thought to myself, with these needles of yours, wouldn't that take someone's life? I think it's better to use scientifically proven first aid methods from the past. I raised my hands and pressed them against Tiny Spiritual Fairy's chest. I kept pressing on the chest to see if Tiny Spiritual Fairy would wake up. But it doesn't seem to have any effect. Do I really have to perform CPR? Thinking this, I had no choice but to lean in. But just at that moment, Tiny spiritual fairy slowly opened her eyes and saw that I was taking advantage of her vulnerable state to kiss her. The previous fondness vanished in an instant. She was momentarily flustered and at a loss for what to do. She could only choose to continue pretending to be unconscious. And after I performed CPR on her, I discovered, it seems her complexion has turned even worse. Could it be that it's not working? And at this moment Uncle Gue is frightening again. He suggested trying acupuncture with needles to see if it works. I quickly refused. Then it occurred to me that Black X might have left some kind of backup plan on her. Should I just slash with my sword to see if it can dispel this evil energy? And Uncle Gue's even more mischievous suggestion was that the pure yang energy of a child's urine is the strongest, which scared Tiny Spiritual Fairy so much that she couldn't keep pretending any longer. What's with the acupuncture, sword splitting, and child's urine? The infuriated Tiny Spiritual Fairy confronts. I was met with a furious, wild roar. I breathed a sigh of relief and at the same time, I realized that Tiny Spiritual Fairy had already woken up. But Tiny Spiritual Fairy said, "You just did that to me. You're such a beast." Uncle Gooey added with a sharp remark. "If Miss Spiritual Fairy feels it's inappropriate, you could marry His Highness." Helplessly, I could only play it straight and say with a serious face, "Whether you believe it or not, I did what I did just now to save you." Upon hearing this, Tiny Spiritual Fairy was furious and said, "Daring to act but not daring to take responsibility is worse than a beast. What would it take for you to believe me? Unless you die." I stared at Tiny Spiritual Fairy for a moment. Just as Tiny Spiritual Fairy thought I was scared, I smiled faintly and said, "That's easy to handle." Then I happily went off to meet my death. Tiny Spiritual Fairy was instantly dumbfounded. After snapping back to reality, filled with regret and anxiety, he hurriedly rushed with Uncle Gue to stop me. By the time they caught up, I was already standing on the edge of the cliff. Tiny Spiritual Fairy kept explaining that what was said earlier was just out of anger. Uncle Gue stepped forward to intervene, but I immediately raised my hand to stop him and confidently said, "If you trust me, don't interfere." Then turning to the Tiny Spiritual Fairy with a smile, I said, "Today, in order to save someone, I have been disrespectful to you, miss. Since you do not believe me, miss, I have no choice but to die to prove my innocence." Amid the panicked cries of the Tiny Spiritual Fairy, I leaped off the cliff. She touched the lingering aura in the air. She gazed into the bottomless abyss beneath her feet. Tiny Spiritual Fairy suddenly collapsed to the ground, still unable to believe that her brother Shun had left so suddenly. Here I am. Jumping off a cliff and surviving is bound to lead to a stroke of fate. That's how it's written in all novels. Of course, this is also the vision of opportunity one saw after Tiny Spiritual Fairy awakened. Theoretically, the angle, timing, position, and wind speed I calculated should be correct, but it seems I overlooked a crucial issue. That is, the unlucky ore I'm under. I was just too excited and jumped off course, damn it. Damn, I just can't get a grip on it. This time it's really turning into a cliff fall. What should I do? Waiting online, kind of urgent. At that moment, the prayer beads in my hand lit up. It turned out that Niner had swiftly emerged to protect her master. Then she fired a blast at my abdomen, and I was sent flying like a bullet. Bang bang bang, I was sent crashing backward. Damn it, lucky for me Niner was there. I looked up at this immortal manor. I thought to myself, bro, I almost gave my all for you, even to the point of death. Looks like I still have to keep lying low. And Tiny Spiritual Fairy gazed at the cliff, scenes flashing through her mind one after another. She finally recalled the series of events when she was abducted by Black X True Master. She thought about how her stubbornness had driven me to jump off the cliff. Overwhelmed with grief, she was ready to sacrifice her life for love. Just as she lifted her foot to take that step, my voice echoed from below. I lied cheerfully, saying I wasn't dead. And I also discovered an immortal cultivation cave here, which got Uncle Gue so excited that he kept saying if Imperial Consort Lan knew about it from the underworld, she would be smiling in the afterlife. When Uncle Gue and the others came down, I looked at Tiny Spiritual Fairy's furious gaze. Suddenly I felt as if I hadn't done anything, so how did I end up being labeled a scumbag? Then, while they were secretly thinking that the Immortals Cave wouldn't be easy to open, I tried it first and then let them give it a try as well. But Qin Gao and Uncle Gue also couldn't open the mechanism. Finally, when it was Tiny Spiritual Fairy's turn, the moment she placed her hand on it, the mechanism instantly lit up. It seems that Miss Spiritual Fairy is the destined one for this cave dwelling. Upon arriving inside the immortal manor, I was astonished to discover. Not only was the interior environment breathtakingly beautiful, but it also housed rare and exotic plants worth millions of spiritual stones. To put it in perspective, Even the most common pure world white lotus costs over 1,000 spiritual stones. This left the tiny spiritual fairy in awe while she was secretly pondering in her heart. With such a huge fortune, wouldn't he silence me? But then my next words, "Please accept these white lotuses and spiritual herbs," left the tiny spiritual fairy in disbelief as she asked, "Do you know how many spirit stones these are worth?" I gave a faint, generous smile and said, "No matter how many spirit stones they're worth, they're all yours." Worth 1,000,000 spirit stones given away for free? Brother Shen, are you serious? This has moved tiny spiritual fairy to tears. And after giving all the spiritual medicines to her, I clearly felt my own fate strengthening simultaneously. But then, tiny spiritual fairy disagreed with taking all the spiritual medicines, making the shackles on me feel heavier again. I could only once again declare with unwavering righteousness that this is your destined opportunity, and all the spiritual medicines should rightfully belong to you. And at this moment, Uncle Gue jokingly suggested with a mischievous grin that the tiny spiritual fairy should marry me. Look at the tiny spiritual fairy's shy and bashful expression. I had no choice but to insist firmly on a 50-50 split and not allow any refusal. This makes tiny spiritual fairy envision him as a domineering CEO character, with hearts and bubbles overflowing with love. I can only change the subject again. After all, the real great opportunity is still there. A sudden stroke of luck feels great in the moment, but riding on fate's coattails brings lasting joy. Tiny spiritual fairy obtained the 2 most top-tier techniques and arts from the divine water spirit lord. Suddenly, 3 stone pillars rose around, each bearing a stone box. As I gazed at the one on the far right, an intense desire surged within me. Could this be my great opportunity? Thinking this, I asked Little Spirit if she could give me that stone box. Since tiny spiritual fairy had already obtained the most precious inheritance, she readily agreed and generously offered all 3 stone boxes to me. I was secretly wondering when this girl had become so generous, but upon checking, her fate aura hadn't changed at all. Based on the experience I've gathered over such a long time, generally I take 50% of the fate, as this distribution of opportunities is most beneficial for both parties. But if it exceeds 50%, or if you take it all, fate will weaken or even decline. This indicates that the combined value of the 3 stone boxes is not as great as the inheritance she obtained. It seems I can take this stone box without worry. Then I'll start with the first one. This is a ring engraved with the words Vast Abyss. It looks pretty good. Let's start by dripping blood to claim ownership. Holy crap, this storage ring is at least tens of thousands of square meters, 100 times larger than the one shopkeeper song gave me. And this storage ring is actually filled with at least 1,000,000 or more spiritual stones. This wave of seizing the opportunity has made me instantly rich. Hurry up and open the next stone box. This second box contained a battle armor and a whip, which are also quite good. But damn, this is women's clothing. Is this the legendary Beauty and the Beast? Back to reality, tiny spiritual fairy shyly admits she has never worn battle armor. So let's just sell it. I haven't worn it, but I never said I didn't like it either. It's driving me crazy. Tiny spiritual fairy instantly explodes with anger. When I looked at the last stone box, the feeling of longing grew even stronger the moment I opened it. Is this water? Suddenly, my flame body tempering manual started operating on its own. Simultaneously, the urge to touch it compelled me to walk over involuntarily. The moment I made contact with that water, the liquid immediately surged into my body. What is happening? But then came an unprecedented pain throughout my entire body. The intense pain made it impossible for me to maintain my physical stability. Faced with Uncle Gue's anxiety and tiny spiritual fairy's panic, I simply had no time to explain. I was in so much pain that I couldn't utter a single word or syllable, only silent screams. Finally, I suddenly collapsed to the ground. When I woke up again, Uncle Gue, overwhelmed with emotion, was in tears. He kept murmuring, "Thanks to the blessings of Imperial Consort Lan." And only then did I realize that the black box I had absorbed was actually the primordial heavy water. This is an even more precious treasure than the 7 treasures immortal gourd. Primordial heavy water. This is also the greatest reliance of the divine water spirit, Lord, in dominating the immortal cultivation world. Generally, even those below the golden core stage dare not attempt it lightly. And I, only at the body tempering first layer, forcibly refined the primordial heavy water. Can you imagine that? Uncle Gue even told me that the primordial heavy water has been absorbed into my kidneys. Damn it, is this going to make me donate a kidney or something? Wait, that thing is absorbing my essence? Damn, they always say women are like water, but this primordial heavy water actually absorbs essence? Damn it, if it keeps sucking, there'll be nothing left. It seems he can use the spiritual stone of the vast abyss ring to convert it into essence. But as I absorb the spiritual stone, it seems it still hasn't stopped. It seems I can only continue absorbing spiritual stones to fill the void within my body. Then 3,000, 5,000, 6,000, 7,000, 10,000. A full 10,000 spiritual stones were needed just for me to break through to the body-tempering fourth layer. I really am the ultimate pay-to-win player. Fortunately, the primordial heavy water has finally settled down. And Uncle Gue couldn't help but sigh, realizing that with the prince's help, he barely managed to break through to the chi-refining 8th layer in just half a month. The prince, using the widely available flame body tempering manual, broke through continuously in just 1 hour. If Imperial Consort Lan knew of this in the afterlife, she would surely smile with eternal peace. And I, with my 8-pack abs stretched lazily and excitedly expressed, "Try taking another punch from me." Then I dashed forward in a sudden rush. Uncle Gue immediately executed the demonic sunflower bodyguard technique, and demonic sunflowers bloomed one after another. In the next instant, red and blue lights collided fiercely. Uncle Gue was horrified to find that he was actually struggling to hold his ground. I am not done yet. My momentum surged once again as I leaped up in a flash. Just as I threw a punch downward, Uncle Gue hastily activated his demonic sunflower bodyguard, but it was useless. The moment my punch landed, it shattered Uncle Gue's shield instantly. At the last moment, just a fraction of a micrometer away from Uncle Gue, I slammed on the brakes. Body tempering 4th layer completely triumphs over chi refining 8th layer. Woohoo! I really am a genius. Uncle Gue also expressed his relief at this moment. Your Highness, this punch is powerful enough to threaten the Foundation establishment stage. Imperial Consort Lan, if she knew in the afterlife, would surely rest with a smile. And I thought about the punch I just threw. It seems that primordial heavy water and the flame body tempering manual are particularly compatible. The moment I activate the flame body tempering manual, the primordial heavy water flows through my body along with my energy. I just tried to concentrate it in my fist, and it actually worked. I never expected that the body tempering manual I bought for just $5 would have such miraculous effects. I was secretly wondering to myself, wait, the flame body tempering manual doesn't contain any techniques or moves. Seems I still need to give it a name. Let's call it Primordial Divine Fist. When I can channel the primordial heavy water to my feet, I'll call it Primordial Divine Leg. Channeling it to the palm will be called Primordial Divine Palm. If channeled throughout the body, it will be called Primordial Invincible Divine Technique. Anyway, brute force can work wonders and is effective against all sorts of flashy tricks. The more he thought about it, the more excited he became. He imagined the weight of the primordial heavy water, and thought how satisfying it would be to spray it all over his opponent's face. Just thinking about it makes me almost drool. I quickly asked Uncle Gue to get me a mirror. I looked at myself in the mirror, and I hadn't even started imagining yet. Uncle Gue first imagined the scene of me marrying the spiritual fairy. He sighed with emotion once again, thinking that if Imperial Consort Lan knew about it in the afterlife, she would surely rest with a smile. And I'm staring at myself in the mirror, realizing I've become even more damn handsome. What should I do? Waiting online quite urgent. And most of the halo has turned white as well. It seems the day of complete redemption is just around the corner. Shortly after, we disguised ourselves and re-entered the Myriad Spirits Garden. But it seems the fans were a bit too enthusiastic, immediately shouting, 3 days! Immortal Master! Do you know how we managed to get through these 3 days? Then the two of them rushed over first and knelt down on the ground. With devout and excited expressions, they tugged at the hem of my clothes, expressing how much they missed me. Just as I was about to awkwardly ask who you two were, suddenly I saw the two of them emitting a dazzling green light. I never expected the leeks I just cut the day before yesterday to have grown so green again. Thinking of this, I quickly smiled and said, I've missed you all too. This got one of them so excited that they quickly expressed, I have even set up a longevity tablet for you at home. Is it really necessary to even bring out the longevity tablet? After a moment of thought, I said helplessly, Today you two are fated to meet this humble Taoist. Later, I shall help you seek your spiritual roots and determine your meridians. The onlookers behind them burst into an uproar. Passerby said, Is that even possible? Passerby B remarked, Truly worthy of being the strongest senior in our sect. The ability to latch onto the strong is truly terrifyingly impressive, Passerby remarked again. Indeed, opportunities are always reserved for those who are prepared. The girl suddenly called out, "Immortal master brother." It almost made me lose my composure. But I swallowed hard and still managed to say, "You have no fate with me today, but if you come often, fate may find you." The girl wanted to act up, but a burly man mocked her, saying, "Without even hugging my leg, you think there's a chance?" Then he quietly walked over to my side. As I stood there completely bewildered, he directly hugged my leg and shook it wildly. I looked at this burly man pretending to be cute, and my mind just broke. What's even crazier is that one leg wasn't enough for the burly man. He had to hug both thighs at once. This scared me into thinking. I decided I couldn't let others believe that hugging thighs would bring them opportunities. But watching the clueless burly man glowing with dazzling green light, is this fucking real or not? There's actually an opportunity for real? I initially thought of brushing him off by saying he had no connection with me, the humble Taoist. But then I considered how this burly guy had swallowed his pride to cling to my leg, which couldn't have been easy. In the end, I still told this brother, "You have a connection with me, the humble Taoist." This brother was absolutely thrilled. But the onlookers behind him were thrown into an uproar. Look at that eager gaze and the occasional murmur. Hugging a thigh really does work. This startled me so much that I quickly raised my hand to stop him. Especially when a female cultivator was actually staring at me, drooling. This scared me so much that I had no choice but to unleash my ultimate move. "You are not allowed to cling to my leg anymore. Otherwise, you will have no connection with me whatsoever." As soon as these words were spoken, the scene finally began to stabilize a bit. Then I quickly added, "Today, I will also select 20 predestined individuals. Don't be discouraged if you weren't chosen. There's plenty of time ahead, and fate will surely bring opportunities in the future." The man beside me didn't forget to boast. Flattery requires both innovation and efficiency. This even left the burly, simple-minded man utterly impressed. Then I brought the chosen one back to the spirit sanctuary again. Meanwhile, shopkeeper Lu was being grilled and criticized by numerous reporters. All of them revolved around the issue of Lee Lotus buying the 7 treasures immortal gourd for 50,000 spiritual stones. This made shopkeeper Lu's already bleeding heart suffer even more, as if salt were being rubbed into his wounds by everyone. And after my arrival, I announced that 3 days of seclusion had yielded some gains. This nearly caused shopkeeper Lu to break down on the spot. But as he looked at the crowd, all stirred up and impassioned. Then, Spiritual Fairy also expressed her desire to try spirit-seeking and vein severing. While I was staring at the halo above her head, I could clearly see the treasures within the opportunities. Previously, the glimpses of opportunities only revealed their location and placement. But what exactly they were remained as blurry as if pixelated. Could it be because I've leveled up? Then I smiled slightly and said, "Go ahead, you're bound to gain something today." Then I added, "If you encounter any indecisive spiritual or, you can come to me." After hearing this, Spiritual Fairy was equally confident, saying, "Harvesting leeks is just so satisfying. This time it's 3 pieces." The girls were so excited they were pounding their chests and stomping their feet. You can tell just how thrilled they were. However, it's a bit of a pity that they didn't uncover a supreme treasure like the 7 treasures immortal gourd. At that very moment, the tiny Spiritual Fairy brought over 3 pieces of or for me to take a look at. "There's still one more here." Thinking of this, I asked, "Which one do you prefer?" Upon hearing this, tiny Spiritual Fairy directly pointed at the elongated ore. This made me confidently pick up the elongated ore and declare, "This is a top-grade magical artifact with severely depleted origin energy, the Phoenix Plume Hairpin. Its estimated value is around 30 to 50,000 spiritual stones." This statement felt like rubbing salt in shopkeeper Lu's wound, only to twist the knife even deeper. With just a casual glance from me, tiny Spiritual Fairy could discern what it was, and couldn't help but let her imagination run wild again. Unintentionally, I reaped a huge harvest once again. A wave of overflowing admiration was harvested. Then, at the moment the stone-cutting craftsman struck down, the ore emitted a dazzling golden light, and even transformed into a phoenix illusion in midair. Upon seeing this, shopkeeper Lu instantly knew that this magical artifact was extraordinary. Thinking back, I had estimated it at 30 to 50,000 spirit stones and was planning to pull a fast one on me. Then he smiled slightly and said he was willing to buy it for 50,000 spirit stones. I directly took out items worth 5,000 spirit stones and handed over spiritual crystals worth 5,000 as the handling fee, saying, "We are not selling this Phoenix Plume hairpin." These words made shopkeeper Lu curse again. He knew damn well he had been cheated once more. This phoenix plume hairpin was worth at least 200,000 spirit stones, and even the handling fee alone should have been 20,000 spirit stones. However, in the unwritten rules of the gambling stone world, the shopkeeper can only appraise the revealed goods once. Shopkeeper Lu burst into tears. Tiny spiritual fairy was standing by at this moment. She asked me while still letting her imagination run wild. And I held her shoulders and gently said, "You can pay me back when you have money," instantly cutting short her imaginative thoughts. Tiny spiritual fairy was instantly enraged. But these scenes were all interrupted by my loyal female fan mistakenly thought I liked men. It even almost escalated into a collective outrage. Helpless, I could only raise my hand. Then I hugged the tiny spiritual fairy again, lost in imagined scenes. First of all, this humble Taoist has a perfectly normal sexual orientation. Then I took off the tiny spiritual fairy hat, lifted her by the waist and said, "Secondly, she is not a man but the tiny spiritual fairy whom you all know." Tiny spiritual fairy was caught off guard by my sudden move, making her blush all over. She kept imagining, is he going to announce our relationship? What should I do? I'm not ready yet. But my mention of our relationship is entirely innocent, and I'm even willing to swear to it. Instantly made tiny spiritual fairy furious again. Of course, after settling the leaks here, I will take them with me. And only when I arrived at the destination did I shockingly realize, for those destined, not a single penny is charged. For those not destined, even 10,000 gold is not considered. Sky Spirit Pavilion actually set up such a grand scene waiting for me? A textbook example of social etiquette and worldly wisdom. Then please watch Shopkeeper Song's performance. I shattered all of his son's teeth. Not only did he prepare a grand welcome ceremony for me, he also showered me with flattery. He even let me pick spiritual or freely without charging any handling fees. Even the onlookers were amazed by this move and praised it as generous. Even I am deeply impressed. Wait a minute. Shopkeeper Song also revealed his halo. In that case, today Shopkeeper Song also shares a fate with this humble Taoist. Hearing these words, Shopkeeper Song was moved to tears of gratitude, secretly thinking that he and his son should be safe now. The onlookers let their imaginations run wild, concluding that the immortal master's opportunity could indeed be sought. Of course, I had no idea their minds could wander so far. Confidently, I picked out a piece of ore for Shopkeeper Song and said, "Go ahead, it won't let you down." Shopkeeper Song quickly called for the craftsman. As the craftsman made a cut with his knife, a dazzling purple light instantly stunned everyone. It turned out to be a hammer with purple patterns. It looks incredibly powerful at first glance. It's even more valuable than the phoenix plume hairpin. Hee, watch closely and see Shopkeeper Song's textbook example of social etiquette. He said, "Immortal Master, you truly are formidable. This purple golden hammer, in my humble opinion, is worth at least 10,000 spirit stones." After hearing this, I calmly remarked, "You didn't lose out either." Shopkeeper Song quickly responded, "Immortal Master, you flatter me. This batch of ore worth 500 spirit stones has already increased 20-fold in value. How could I possibly be at a loss? According to the rules, I should pay the Immortal Master 5,000 spirit stones, but the shop has recently stocked up too much and truly lacks the funds. How about valuing this purple golden hammer at 10,000? Then deduct 50% as the fee for Immortal Master's arduous task of severing the old man's meridians. Immortal Master pays 5,000 spirit stones to the old man, and this purple golden hammer is yours. A magical tool worth 300,000 spirit stones sold for 5,000. This top-tier haggling completely stunned the onlookers. From Shopkeeper Song's first words of dissatisfaction, to the collective outrage by the second sentence, culminating in the final wave of seamless and masterful execution, the shopkeeper is the true idol. And I stared at this purple golden hammer, pondering for a moment. It seems to be working in tandem with the primordial heavy water. Isn't this clearly a hardcore tool? Then I'll just buy it directly. However, as I mentioned before, for those destined to have it, I ask for nothing in return. Forget about the 5,000 spirit stones. Let's just go with your valuation of 10,000. Then, continuing to observe Shopkeeper Song, the halo around him still shines brightly. I truly have no intention of taking advantage of the situation. Look, Shopkeeper Song is so moved that he's shedding tears. But then, another destined individual unearthed, a spiritual tool worth 4,000 spirit stones. He also wished to learn from Shopkeeper Song. But such a low-grade magical tool. Could it be a scam? After some thought, I still spoke with an air of righteousness. Brother isn't the kind of person who goes after cheap deals. Because this is an insult to this humble Taoist. With that, I turned and walked away in a huff. The fated one sadly kept complaining to their boss about how they couldn't even copy homework properly. And their boss at that moment was looking, solemnly picked up the memo pad and began jotting something down. This turned out to be an analysis of interpersonal relationships at the arcane level. The crowd was stunned. Truly worthy of being a grade D top student. He actually dissected the meaning of the slow need to start early to perfection. But only shopkeeper Song himself truly understands the bitterness within. At that very moment a figure walked in. It was none other than the true sixth prince of the great empire. Shen Tian. Upon hearing that this person claimed to be the sixth prince of the great empire Shen Tian, shopkeeper Song stared at him as if looking at some kind of fool. The sixth prince sensed a tone of doubt. Enraged and ashamed, he directly revealed that he had already become a disciple under the great white celestial grotto's Xiang true master. Who would dare to impersonate him? Shopkeeper Song could only tactfully express that proof was needed. The enraged sixth prince directly produced the imperial token. Shopkeeper Song stared at the token and muttered under his breath, "Damn, this counterfeit looks so real." But then a thought suddenly crossed his mind. Suddenly he started showering the sixth prince with a torrent of flattering compliments, such as being a prodigy with exceptional insight, and extremely skilled in guiding spiritual energy, and diagnosing meridians. Hearing this, the sixth prince felt immensely flattered and secretly thought, truly talented people really know how to speak pleasingly. Then he modestly said, I only have a basic understanding of locating spiritual veins and interpreting their patterns. Upon hearing this, shopkeeper Song's eyes turned cold. But then his expression immediately warmed like a spring breeze. He invited him into the inner hall for tea to apologize and even offered to let His Highness choose from his collection of rare, top-quality mineral reserves that he had treasured for years. These words filled the sixth prince with joy, and he eagerly followed shopkeeper Song into the inner hall. After drinking the top-quality Biluakun tea, the sixth prince asked with an imposing aura, "Shopkeeper, where is the collection you mentioned?" Shopkeeper Song chuckled darkly, "Just wait a little longer." At that moment, the sixth prince sensed something was wrong. Realizing what had happened, he angrily accused, "You actually poisoned us." At this moment, shopkeeper Song also dropped his disguise and mocked him as an impostor. He then ordered his men to hang the sixth prince up for interrogation. Yet the sixth prince continued to scream that he was indeed Shen Tian. He was then slapped back and forth by shopkeeper Song's son. While slapping him, he mocked, "Are you going to talk or not? Speak up. You've taped his mouth shut, you know." Young shopkeeper Song became addicted to it after trying it. He kept taunting while smoking. He thought to himself, beating this kid up like a foolish son was truly satisfying. No wonder the old man always likes to beat me. Half an hour later, shopkeeper Song asked how the interrogation went. However, when he saw the sixth prince's tightly sealed little mouth, his face instantly darkened. He turned around and slapped his son. Have you ever fucking seen a suspect's mouth sealed with a silent talisman during an interrogation? They can't even speak if they want to confess. Then he immediately tore off the silent talisman. But then shopkeeper Song was even more ruthless. He sneered sinisterly as the sixth prince's eyes widened in shock. He pulled out a leather whip right under the sixth prince's wide-eyed gaze. What is this? Dripping wax, sprinkling salt, or dipping it in chilly water? The sixth prince, tormented to the brink of collapse, instantly burst into tears. Then, amidst the sharp crack of the whip, he deeply regretted ever being tainted by my misfortune, and I thought it was just another obsessed fangirl thinking of me. Then it occurred to me that I might have been a bit too high-profile lately. What if one day a protagonist like Tianming really shows up and decides to offer me as a sacrifice? Speak of the devil. Niner suddenly darted out from the spiritual stone bag. She said warily, "Not good, master. I sense a terrifying aura approaching." Seeing Zhang Yunxi's anxious expression, thinking about the fiery temper of this female tyrant, I could only say helplessly, "Please wait a moment, fairy. After I bathe and change clothes we can begin." This remark made Zhang Yunxi a bit unhappy. However, considering that some unique secret techniques might require preparation, he still held back. Just then a knock came at the door. Qin Gao hurriedly explained himself. He was just preparing to carry Uncle Gue back to rest. Just that Uncle Gue, despite being electrocuted to the point of confusion, he kept mumbling nonstop, trying to set me up with Zhang Yunxi. Zhang Yunqi, gritting his teeth, raised his hand once more. She directly gave them both an electric shock. Qin Gao also got caught in the crossfire and was fried to a crisp. I was lying in the bathtub and thought I had misheard. Seizing the moment, I quickly recalled the scene of Zhang Yunqi's opportunity. An hour later, when I was finally ready to go, Zhang Yunqi asked sarcastically if I needed someone to scrub my back, which scared me into awkwardly replying, "No need, we can set off now." However, it was only when Zhang Yunqi then scolded Uncle Gue that I was truly shocked to realize, when did this little Gao also provoke this tigress? Then I took a few people and came to the Sky Spirit Pavilion again. Shopkeeper Song and the others were taken aback when they first saw me. Then they turned into fervent fanatics and charged straight at me. I was so frightened that I quickly raised my hand to stop them, shouting, "No hugging the legs." After some explanation, I finally understood. It turns out these guys wanted Shopkeeper Song to take the position of the Great Elder in the sect. Are they out of their minds? Arguing back and forth, I'm speechless. But then a fan spoke up and said, if Shopkeeper Song were to become the Grand Elder, not only would the sect have funding, then the brothers in the sect could also get discounts on purchases. It could also attract more brothers to join our sect. Upon hearing this, Shopkeeper Song's face turned ashen. Wasn't this just making him the scapegoat? Just as he was about to refuse outright, my reasonable words instantly petrified Shopkeeper Song. In the end, he stammered and expressed, if this old man were the chief elder of the sect, he would be willing to cover all the sect's expenses. Moreover, all disciples of our sect will receive a 12% discount when purchasing minerals at the store. Finally, he even beat his chest in frustration. He declared that all mining fees would be halved. The audacity of this little old man truly astonished me, daring to make such a bold gamble. Then let Shopkeeper Song serve as the Grand Elder. But in Zhang Yunqi's view, what difference is there between this and a full-blown cult? She questioned, fellow practitioner, may we begin the search for spiritual veins and the cutting of ores? Of course. I confidently raised my hand and gestured. Fairy, please look. This piece of spiritual ore is your destined opportunity. Shopkeeper Song took one look and gave it a full thumbs up, boasting that it was the treasure of his shop. Zhang Yunqi was initially taken aback, watching the two of us banter back and forth. After snapping back to reality, she thought, are these two trying to scam me like I'm some easy target? Legend has it that the so-called ancient battlefield was once the site of the decisive battle between the various sanctuaries of Eastern Desolation and the extraterrestrial demons. Countless supreme powerhouses fell and left behind a vast number of precious treasures and legacies. However, due to the large number of fallen powerhouses, the pervasive aura of malevolence gave rise to countless terrifying evil creatures. However, every year, many cultivators from major immortal cultivation sects venture into these areas for training. Those with good fortune may encounter great opportunities, while the unlucky ones might perish directly. As a result, the spiritual ores from the ancient battlefield have been scattered. However, after such a long time, ordinary spiritual ores and spiritual artifacts have struggled to survive. Only legendary holy artifacts or supreme treasures could possibly have survived from ancient times. The legendary Saint of Purple Mansion Sanctuary. He revealed the Sutra of the Imperishable Nirvana Emperor. Spiritual ore is excavated from the ancient battlefield. Hence this saint is hailed as the absolute son of fate for the past century. And this kind of spiderweb ore, with its spiritual or protective layer already shattered, is almost universally considered waste ore. Therefore, Zhang Yunqi found it unreliable, and was even a bit bewildered. Although my confident attitude has already said it all, yet it still prompted him to raise doubts. At this moment, Shopkeeper Song was the first to lose his composure. He launched into a barrage of sarcastic remarks aimed directly at Zhang Yunqi. This infuriated Zhang Yunqi, who angrily declared, this worthless mine is absolutely not worth 100,000 spiritual stones. Shopkeeper Song gave a sly smile and laid his cards on the table. Let's be straightforward, no need for pretenses. The purchase price for this spiderweb ore is 50,000 spiritual stones, and listing it at 100,000 spiritual stones is just standard industry pricing practice. At the same time, he launched into a relentless barrage of both provocation and sarcasm aimed at him. Looking at Zhang Yunqi's face, which was as dark as the bottom of a pot, I couldn't help but feel anxious for Shopkeeper Song. Sure enough, Zhang Yunqi flew into a rage and slammed his fist on the table. She pulled out a bag of spiritual stones and tossed it over, saying, here are 100 spiritual crystals. Since Brother Shen claims there's a treasure in this mine, I'll buy it. Then she added, Shopkeeper, do you dare make a bet with me? Shopkeeper Song gave a sly smile and said, "Why wouldn't I dare? Alright then. With 500,000 spirit stones as the benchmark, if the treasure revealed is worth more than that, I'll gladly give it to Brother Shen for free. If it's worth less than 500,000 spirit stones, how about you close your shop for 3 months? What? Damn it, after all this talk I haven't gotten any advantage, have I?" Shopkeeper Song was completely bewildered. But thinking about it, this does seem to reflect his sincere devotion towards me. Fine then, let's just take the gamble. I personally started mining, and then Shopkeeper Song decisively swung his blade down. In an instant, a dazzling blue light erupted. The winds and clouds surged between heaven and earth, with lightning flashing and thunder roaring. Then, a magnificent purple thunderbolt descended from the sky. As it plunged downward, it astonishingly transformed into the shapes of a dragon and a tiger. Zhang Yunqi wore a look of utter astonishment. Witnessing such a terrifying scene, I initially intended to. I was about to evacuate first, but Zhang Yunqi stopped me abruptly. He even asked me why I didn't keep watching. Shouldn't this damn guy go farther away? Is he waiting to get struck by lightning? I thought about it and realized I could only pretend to be tough and say. When I selected this spiritualer in the channel, the outcome became clear to me. These words immediately made Zhang Yunqi freeze for a moment. Meanwhile, the range of the heavenly thunder's radiation grew wider and wider. Even everyone in the entire Myriad Spirits Garden sensed this terrifying aura. The moment the thunder descended, it instantly collided with the spiderweb or. The entire Sky Spirit Pavilion was illuminated, yet it seemed as if the thunder could recognize people. It curved directly and struck towards Uncle Gue. The onlookers were all affected and got electrocuted together. However, Meng Han felt a surge of power flowing in, which was incredibly comfortable. Meanwhile, Uncle Gue was fried to a crisp by the electric shock. Could this be the legendary hitting an ox across a mountain? Then, as the purple lightning faded away, Zhang Yunqi was astonished to discover that it was actually the legendary supreme treasure, the celestial dragon and tiger pendant. Legend has it that tens of thousands of years ago, the divine firmament Thunder Emperor created the Sutra of Thunder Emperor. Its highest forbidden technique, body into tribulation, enabled the divine firmament sanctuary to rank among the top 12 sanctuaries in Eastern Desolation. However, during the battle against the extraterrestrial demons 10,000 years ago, the top-tier combat forces of the epic Divine Sky Sanctuary throughout the ages were nearly all wiped out, the Sutra of Thunder Emperor was mostly lost, and the ultimate forbidden technique, body into tribulation, was completely lost. And this celestial dragon and tiger pendant, also known as the Divine Firmament Thunder Emperor Tribulation, records 2 Divine Firmament ultimate techniques on the dragon and tiger pendants respectively. As long as the dragon and tiger pendants are combined and the Divine Firmament secret method is applied, the supreme forbidden technique body into tribulation can be obtained. Therefore, the moment Zhang Yunqi saw the celestial dragon and tiger pendant, she couldn't resist and immediately took it. She gazed at this celestial dragon and tiger pendant. Thinking of the sect's heavy losses and the lost secret techniques, the sanctuary's prestige has also been diminishing day by day. Zhang Yunqi couldn't help but shed tears at that moment. Just then, Meng Han began to mock Zhang Yunqi, repeatedly taunting him by saying, "Didn't you just claim that you would give it away for free as long as its value exceeds 500,000 spiritual stones?" This reminded Zhang Yunqi of his previous bet with Shopkeeper Song. However, the celestial dragon and tiger pendant held immense value and significance for the epic Divine Sky Sanctuary, making it impossible for Zhang Yunqi to give it up. She was even willing to sacrifice everything for it. At this thought, Zhang Yunqi almost begged me to cede it, promising to agree to any request in return. And I, with the demeanor of a transcendent being detached from worldly affairs, waved my hand dismissively and said, "Fairy, there's no need for such courtesy. For those without fate, even 10,000 gold is worthless. For those with fate, not a single coin is required." Though to be honest, I fucking wanted to just pocket it and leave. But just now, cultivators from hundreds of miles around sensed the emergence of a supreme treasure in the Myriad Spirits Garden. Taking it under such circumstances would be risky if discovered. Does that mean I'd have to get the Ghana pallbearers for myself? So I can only pretend not to care and let them not worry about the bet, just keep it. But upon hearing this, Zhang Yunqi's cheeks flushed red. After realizing it, she refused to agree. She insisted on fulfilling the bet with something else. I'm speechless. I, Your Highness, have clearly stated that I don't want any reward, yet you still insist on offering something else in return. But, is it really true that anything is acceptable? In that case, then I want the mask on your face. I originally intended to use this mask to keep a low profile and survive. But Zhang Yunqi shyly imagined that I did it just to catch a glimpse of her beauty, even thinking that I would cherish the mask as a memento of her in the future. So when she agreed, I was just a bit confused about why her face was so red. However, she used magic to isolate us, leaving only me. As she slowly removed her mask, I was completely stunned. Unlike the enchanting agility of the tiny spiritual fairy, Li Lotus's adorable and charmingly naive demeanor, Niner's poignant and sorrowful melancholy, Zhang Yunqi is truly a peerless goddess of war in her prime. I was stunned when Zhang Yunqi took off her mask. However, Zhang Yunqi said with a serious expression that since the celestial dragon and tiger pendant is a secret treasure passed down by the sanctuary, and the phenomenon it caused was astonishing, she must immediately take the pendant back to the sanctuary. And she also said that she already understood my feelings, and if she could return safely, she would definitely agree to me. I was also completely bewildered. What do you mean by, I already understand your feelings? Your Highness merely wanted a mask from you. Is that really necessary? But seeing Zhang Yunqi's grave expression, I could only declare with a sense of righteousness, please speak freely, fairy. This humble Taoist is willing to face any danger without fear. Then without wasting words, Zhang Yunqi bit her finger and let a drop of her vital blood fall onto the dragon and tiger pendant. Instantly, a dazzling golden light pierced my optic nerves. Then while I was still in a dazed state, suddenly an incomprehensible secret technique and art appeared in my mind. At this moment, Zhang Yunqi explained, Yunqi has already passed on the entire dragon and tiger pendant inheritance to you. If anything were to happen to Yunqi this time, please, young master, make your way to the sanctuary in the future. Return the inheritance on behalf of Yunqi. Then she directly transformed into the thunder tiger and soared away. I had no choice but to accept it. Speaking of which, ever since this girl got the dragon and tiger pendant, her fate aura has almost turned into a golden sun. With such an intense fate, who would dare to rob her? Wouldn't they be instantly defeated? I thought about it and decided there's no need to worry about her. Better to focus on taking care of myself. Although I feel even more handsome now, when did this golden mark appear? I finally got cuckolded, damn it. But then in one swift turn, I noticed that not only Uncle Guichen Gao had a golden mark on his forehead, everyone has a golden mark on their forehead. Could it be that I intervened in Zhang Yunqi's affairs? The butterfly effect brought about by a twist of fate. But then the strong man noticed the situation and reminded Shopkeeper Song that there are times when Shopkeeper Song suddenly realized that this was the divine Yin-Yang primordial thunder, ranked 88th on the divine thunder list. At the same time, this is also the signature divine thunder that the epic divine sky sanctuary can mass produce. It seems this finally explains why everyone has this thunder mark. It must be that the heavenly tribulation shattered the essence of the jade pendant earlier, causing the essence to overflow and seep into everyone's bodies. Meanwhile, Qin Gao and the others also discovered the benefits brought by the thunder mark. This couldn't help but make Uncle Gue sigh with emotion once again. Who would have thought that a random or His Highness picked would actually yield another supreme treasure? If Imperial Consort Lan knew about this in the afterlife, she would surely rest with a smile. At this moment, Shopkeeper Song was exhilarated, shouting, "Where is that little girl who dared to question me?" I quickly stopped him and reminded, "Shopkeeper Song, how dare you call her that? She is the saintess of the epic divine sky sanctuary Zhang Yunqi." That statement completely terrified Shopkeeper Song. He immediately dropped to his knees, begging for mercy and feigning pitifulness. Meanwhile, his mind raced. Realizing that even the saintess had to flatter the immortal master, he thought that the young man impersonating the immortal master must be handed over to the real immortal master as soon as possible. Otherwise, if even the saintess came to compete for the opportunity, how could an old man like him survive? The shopkeeper, having made up his mind, immediately spoke up. Immortal master, I have something to tell you. I caught a little thief pretending to be you yesterday, sir." "Pretending to be me? I've only been impersonating the immortal master for a few days, and now someone's already copying me? The bootleg speed in this immortal cultivation world is way too fast." Shopkeeper Song suddenly pulled out the token, and I was utterly shocked. Damn, this is the genuine token of my sixth brother. But to conceal my identity, I pretended not to know and retorted, "What does he, impersonating the sixth Prince Shenao, have to do with me, Shen OP?" Then I cautiously reminded, "Have you ever considered that this Shenao might actually be real?" The sharp-witted Shopkeeper Song quickly caught on and said, "Is it inconvenient for you, immortal master, to reveal your identity?" Previously, when you saw that young lad of mine being disrespectful to the spiritual fairy, you taught him a lesson, and it was through that incident that he had the fortune to learn of your true identity. Besides, with you being here, how could Sheneo possibly be real as well? This old man even saw through my disguise. It must have been Uncle Gue who beat up young shopkeeper Song earlier. He probably got this idea after seeing Uncle Gue following me. Plus, with my exceptional looks, even with a fake beard, I still stand out like a crane among chickens. But after all, Sheneo is my brother. I definitely can't just turn around and leave. What if shopkeeper Song decides it's a fake and tears up the ticket? That would be a real mess. I think I'll observe a bit more before deciding. Let's go. If this guy turns out to be an imposter, I'll just keep my disguise on. But if it really is sixth brother, then things might get a bit tricky. Thinking it over, I decided to leave Uncle Gue Gao where he was for now. After all, what if they really recognized me? I still have the phoenix feather mask that Zhang Yunqi gave me. Once I put it on, I instantly felt perfect. When I arrived at shopkeeper Song's underground chamber, I was stunned as I looked at Brother Six, whose face was swollen like a pig's head. Are you guys fucking aiming for the face or what? Upon hearing the sound, the sixth prince instantly opened one eye. Could it be you, 13th brother? Holy crap. You could actually tell it was me? But I quickly changed my voice and denied it, saying, "Don't talk nonsense, it's not me." But the sixth prince grinned and said, "Stop joking, 13th brother. Take a look at your shoes, they're specially made for the royal family. My god, Brother Six is truly a once-in-a-century genius of the great empire. Even with his face swollen like that, his vision remains so sharp. But I absolutely cannot let my cover be blown. Thinking it over, I have no choice but to keep denying it verbally. But at this moment, the prince couldn't hold back anymore. Yes, you're amazing, you're so noble. But brother, why are you kidnapping me? Does this sixth brother think I'm a fool? He keeps saying he believes I'm not the 13th prince, yet he keeps calling me brother. It's clear he has already seen through my disguise. How can I possibly feel at ease letting you go? What if you hold a grudge and plot against me once you're safe? Even though I'm already wearing a green hat, as the saying goes, it's not the thief I fear, but the one who keeps thinking about it. And at this moment, shopkeeper Song finally realized that I am Shen Tian. Realizing the truth, shopkeeper Song happily expressed his thanks. He then immediately slapped his son across the face and scolded. "You little brat, are your ears clogged? You mistook the 13th prince for the 6th prince. Your hearing is worse than that of shopkeeper next door." But young shopkeeper Song looked utterly wronged, thinking to himself, "I'm pretty sure I heard him refer to himself as the 6th prince. Wait, so that means the person in front of me is actually the 6th prince?" I can only helplessly say, "What do you all think?" But these words caused the 6th prince to break down on the spot. He had thought it was a major conspiracy targeting him as a once-in-a-century genius, only to realize that all the suffering he endured was simply because the young shopkeeper was hard of hearing. In the end, he could only grit his teeth and say tearfully, "13th brother, please tell them to let me go. I promise I won't hold a grudge." Hearing this, I originally just wanted to ask the shopkeeper for his opinion. But shopkeeper Song, as if understanding my intention, directly pulled out a dagger and said coldly, "The immortal master's intention is simply to spare no one and leave no loose ends." He then charged directly in front of the 6th prince. The moment shopkeeper Song pulled out the dagger, the 6th prince was scared out of his wits. "Hey, is this guy really going to kill me?" Then shopkeeper Song lifted the dagger with a cold expression. Just as he was about to deliver a fatal blow, suddenly, just 5 centimeters away from the 6th prince's skull, he paused. As the 6th prince quietly opened one eye, shopkeeper Song, however, clung to my leg, tears streaming down as he poured out his heart. He kept begging, insisting that what he had done was, he just couldn't bring himself to do legitimate business. I'm confused too. I clearly asked a question just now, not made a statement. What kind of twisted logic is this? At this moment, the 6th prince anxiously pleaded again. "Don't kill my 13th brother. You two brave men, aren't you just afraid that if you release me, I'll seek revenge?" Rest assured, I swear on my honor that I absolutely will not. If you're still worried, you can feed me the memory-severing pill. After giving me the pill and sending me out, won't I forget all the memories of this day once I wake up? Right, how could I have forgotten that? Sixth brother's words suddenly cleared things up for me. This is the memory-severing pill. Just one pill can erase a whole day's memories. It is generally used to prevent certain events from causing an immortal cultivator's mental state to waver, which could lead to a deviation in their cultivation. For example, If a cultivator's Tao companion breaks up with them, and immediately gets together with a privileged young master from a cultivation family, taking a memory-severing pill at this moment can erase the memories from the previous day. This way you won't feel the pain, nor will it affect your state of mind. This is an essential elixir on the path of immortal cultivation. After some thought, I realized that Brother Six's words made a lot of sense. I immediately asked the clumsy shopkeeper to go and buy it. But Shopkeeper Song directly slapped down a large jar of memory-severing pills. My God, Shopkeeper Song, why are you carrying such a large jar of memory-severing pills with you? Could it be that you're a flower thief? I've heard they always carry memory-severing pills with them, taking one after each encounter, so the girl remembers nothing the next day. Shopkeeper Song hurriedly waved his hands and explained, "No, immortal master, that's not the case. I'm giving this to my good-for-nothing son," the old man said. "This boy is always causing trouble outside, so I often whip and discipline him." These words instantly enraged his son. He had no recollection of it at all. "So it's all thanks to this large jar of memory-severing pills. Do you give me one of these pills every time you finish whipping me? You're really my own father, aren't you? Am I even your biological son, damn it?" But Shopkeeper Song declared with an air of righteousness, "Spare the rod and spoil the child. Your father hits you only for your own good." Then, he immediately took out a memory-swerving pill, intending to feed it to the sixth prince. But he suddenly realized that this was a first-grade memory-severing pill. It only works on chi refining stage cultivators. The sixth prince has already broken through to the foundation establishment stage, and can use his cultivation to neutralize the effects of the medicine. However, the sixth prince firmly guaranteed that he would absolutely not neutralize the effects of the medicine. He even went so far as to swear to heaven. I knocked him out with a single blow, so there was no way he could neutralize it now. After Shopkeeper Song finished feeding him the memory-severing pill, I took out a rejuvenation pill and said he needed to take it too to completely erase all evidence. Shopkeeper Song could only awkwardly agree, saying, "The immortal master's consideration is indeed thorough." After finally dealing with the matter, I turned and walked away, also entrusting the aftermath of Sixth Brother's affairs to Shopkeeper Song and his son. And Shopkeeper Song did not forget the important task, abandoning the sixth prince in the wilderness. After secretly observing and confirming that the prince's memories from the previous day had indeed been erased, he finally breathed a quiet sigh of relief, but then thought it over and still felt uneasy. His son must also take one. The fewer people know about this, the better. One more person knowing means one more risk. Under the coercion of Shopkeeper Song, the son had no choice but to reluctantly eat it. The next day was originally a beautiful day with bright sunshine and gentle breezes. Shopkeeper Song was leisurely sipping his tea when suddenly, young Shopkeeper Song rushed in excitedly and said, "Dad, guess what happened to me today? I just ran into a petty thief who tried to impersonate the immortal master right in front of me. After all, I'm a follower who has received the immortal master's grace. How could I stand by and watch this guy desecrate the immortal master? So I lured him to the backyard, drugged him, and now he's tied up in the secret chamber. Dad, isn't your son clever? Same method, same outcome." The sixth prince ended up with a bruised and swollen face. The same story keeps repeating itself. "I was too careless, Your Highness, and I have already stepped out of the mire. At this moment, I am emotionally stirred and preparing to cultivate the Thunder Emperor technique, an art given to me by Zhang Yunxi. Uncle Guiqin Gao is helping me protect the Dharma. I, the prince, am now cleansed and purified, no longer plagued by misfortune, and can finally settle down to cultivate in seclusion for a while. However, among the 3 top secret techniques of the Thunder Emperor passed down to me by that girl Zhang Yunxi, the body into tribulation is a forbidden chapter of the Sutra of Thunder Emperor. With my current cultivation level, I am unable to cultivate it yet. So, I'll start with the 5 Thunder Heavenly Manual. It's perfect since I haven't cultivated any chi refining techniques and arts before. The 5 Thunder Heavenly Manual contains 10 types of thunder techniques, each said to possess immense power. Mastering just one of them is enough to dominate the Eastern Desolation. Among these, A, C, E, G, and I are of the Yang nature and can condense the Yang 5-element divine thunder. B, D, F, H, and J are of the Yin nature, capable of gathering the Yin 5-element thunder. However, Yin-Yang 5 thunder conflicts in attributes, making simultaneous cultivation challenging. But if one can master the fusion of 10 thunder techniques to harmonize Yin and Yang, it can condense into the legendary Grand 5 elements divine Yin-Yang primordial thunder. And as it happens, I possess the origin of this Grand 5 elements divine Yin-Yang primordial thunder within the Dragon and Tiger pendant. Does that mean I can cultivate the 10 divine thunders? Just thinking about it gets me excited. I'll try practicing it first. As for the 5 thunder heavenly manual, which thunder technique to cultivate first depends on one's personal 5-element attributes. Just as I began to circulate the technique in art, something in my kidneys seemed to surge forth with a restless agitation. It was the primordial heavy water. It seems that I, Your Highness, am of the water element in the 5 phases. No wonder my temperament is so gentle, just as the highest virtue is like water. And at that very moment, the 5 thunder heavenly manual and the primordial heavy water merged and completely fused together. Instantly, I broke through to the body-tempering 5 layer. Moments later, chi refining also surged all the way up. It directly shot up to the 5th layer of chi refining. All of this is mainly because I had previously devoured a large amount of divine primordial thunder essence at the Sky Spirit Pavilion, which caused my speed in cultivating thunder techniques to skyrocket. However, in Uncle Gue's eyes, this was quite a blow. They had to cultivate diligently for months or even years just to barely advance 1 level. Your Highness suddenly felt inspired and pulled out. Spiritual stone cultivation breaks through rapidly. As promised, the sunward demon tome belongs to Eastern Desolation, one of the fastest cultivation techniques and arts. Who is the true master of the cultivate demon technique? And now, I have reached a bottleneck in my cultivation. The Eyewater Divine Thunder is gradually taking shape. With sufficient spiritual energy, it can easily be condensed. In that case, let's give it a try and unleash it. The 5 thunder heavenly manual can gather the 5 elements divine thunder to suppress enemies and enhance oneself. Just like when Zhang Yunqi previously unleashed the white tiger roaring sky, it was invincible against opponents of the same level. And the Eyewater Divine Thunder I cultivate naturally has its corresponding phenomenon, the Xuanwu's Earthlock, which primarily focuses on suppression and defense. Once activated, it can summon the Xuanwu Divine Beast to protect oneself. The Xuanwu Divine Thunder gathers into armor, forming an impenetrable defense. Xuanwu's Earthlock. Come forth. Then a primordial beast emerged. A terrifying aura blotted out the sky and covered the earth. Uncle Gue Qin Gao froze instantly on the spot. This is my Shen Tian version of the Xuanwu's Earthlock. Just look at the expressions of Qin Gao and Uncle Gue to know. They look so inexperienced, probably shocked by my talent, aren't they? Your Highness's cultivation speed is unprecedented and unparalleled. Truly a testament to your extraordinary talent. Qin Gao promptly handed me a mirror at just the right moment. What could it be that this prince has become even more handsome from practicing martial arts? But in an instant I was stunned. Damn, this Xuanwu is way too small, isn't it? It's so unfair. Why is Zhang Yunqi's white tiger so huge while my turtle is so tiny? No way, I absolutely can't manifest the Xuanwu phenomenon in the future. It's too embarrassing. How about trying the Awood Azurlong Divine Thunder, which is also of the water element? Then let's not practice it for now. What if the Azurlong turns into a caterpillar? That would be utterly embarrassing. It seems I can only focus on mastering the use of the Eyewater Divine Thunder for now. But wouldn't the Eyewater Divine Thunder, infused with a portion of primordial heavy water, be even more powerful? Then let's see it in action. While others cultivate, the higher their strength, the more impressive their style becomes. As for me, except for being related to a turtle shell, it's also ridiculously pay to win. My name is Shen Tian. I just wanted to showcase my self-created new move. Little did I expect that the terrifying explosive force would make the entire house tremble. Qin Gao and Uncle Gue were both stunned. The sheer power of the attack felt incredibly satisfying. But I recall that the 5 Thunder Heavenly Manual recorded an advanced technique paired with the Eyewater Divine Thunder. The Xuanwu armor, capable of condensing thunder shields all over the body. Let's test how well it defends. Then, under the astonished gazes of Qin Gao and Uncle Gue, I unleashed my own Xuanwu defensive armor. But this design looks exactly like a turtle shell, doesn't it? Wait, if this thing were to condense into armor covering the entire body, then wouldn't I become like the turtle hermit? No, that's too creepy. Let's first test the defensive power of this turtle shell. Try attacking me with all your strength. Uncle Gue, upon receiving the instruction, immediately unleashed an attack with the power of the Chi refining stage 8 layer. But just as Uncle Gue's fist heavily struck my turtle shell in that instant, the terrifying recoil actually sent Uncle Gue flying backward. Uncle Gue stared at me with a look of disbelief on his face. Not bad. Although the design is a bit tacky, its defensive capabilities are quite strong, and it even has a counterattack effect. From now on, anyone in the same rank who dares to hit me, I'll just stand here and let you try. Just thinking about it makes me feel all warm and fuzzy inside. Then let's try cultivating the Thunder Body Tempering Manual next. The 5 Thunder Heavenly Manual uses 10 types of divine thunder to nourish the Dantian. The Thunder Emperor Body Tempering Manual uses various powerful thunders to temper the physical body. When tempered to a certain extent, it can transform into the Thunder Spirit Body, enhancing the power of one's thunder techniques. However, the cultivation method I had been practicing was the Epic Flame Manual, which I bought for just $5 on the street. I'm quite curious to see how much of a gap there is between it and the Supreme Thunder Emperor Body Tempering technique from the Epic Divine Sky Sanctuary. Wait, what's going on? Why is it that when I practice the Thunder Emperor Body Tempering Manual, the divine thunder and divine water within me become disobedient and even start attacking each other? Am I on the verge of chi deviation again? Wasn't it said that having a green hat on my head wouldn't bring bad luck? No, I should calm down first and try circulating the Epic Flame Manual. As soon as I circulated the Epic Flame Manual, both the divine thunder and divine water were suppressed. I never expected that the supreme body tempering technique of the prestigious Epic Divine Sky Sanctuary would be less intimidating than my common Epic Flame Manual. By the way, since I could previously use the primordial heavy water body with the ember refining body technique, could I also use it to temper my body with the divine primordial thunder? Never mind, let's just give it a try. Then whoosh, my surging aura bursts forth from my entire body. It really works, and the body tempering effect feels surprisingly exhilarating. It's just a bit too pay to win, I suppose. As I watched the spiritual stone lose its luster, I couldn't help but feel a deep sense of helplessness. It seems that even after transmigrating to the immortal cultivation world, rapid strength enhancement still relies heavily on spending money. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to another deep mountain forest, where a terrifying explosion suddenly echoes. A figure was violently thrown back by the terrifying attack. It turned out to be Zhang Yunqi, often called the violent war god, who was being chased by a giant eagle to the point of utter despair. Just as the golden-winged great rock was about to seize him, a jade-green lotus suddenly appeared, blocking its path. The golden-winged rock king froze in place for a moment. To his surprise, his indestructible talons could not pierce through the azure lotus. Zhang Yunqi was also taken aback for a moment. After catching her breath, she pondered, "The azure lotus is protecting me?" But suddenly it seemed she thought of something. Could it be? At that moment, an elderly man suddenly materialized within the green lotus. Uncle Zhang Yunqi instantly understood. Meanwhile, the black-clad figure standing on the periphery suddenly changed their expressions upon seeing the green lotus. The azure lotus of creation, a variant, the azure sky lotus of the jade heaven, belongs to celestial lord of the jade lotus, Chu Longha. Oh my god, we can't afford to mess with this plague god. Let's get out of here. Upon seeing Chu Longha, the black-clad figures seemed to lose their minds and fled in a frantic rush. Seeing this, Chu Longha's expression darkened, and he let out a cold snort, saying, "Trying to leave? It's not that easy." Suddenly, he unleashed his full aura, his presence surging as he instantly dashed forward. Immediately after, he gathered his palms, enveloping himself in a swirling mass of cyan true qi. As he raised his palm and struck, the sky filled with cyan energy enveloped the black-clad figure like flames. The intense heat roasted the black-clad person, causing sizzling sounds as if roasting a sweet potato. Zhang Yunqi couldn't help but murmur in admiration. So powerful, Uncle Master. Truly worthy of being known as one of the most untouchable figures in the entire Eastern Desolate Lands. At that moment, Chu Longha said with a terrifying expression, "How dare you lay a hand on my nephew disciple's daughter? Do you think any of you can escape?" The terrifying scene frightened the other 2 men in black into fleeing even more frantically, wishing they had 2 extra legs on their bodies. However, Chu Longha sneered calmly and said, "Give up. You can't escape." The cyan vital energy in his hand surged once again. The terrifying magical power instantly enveloped all the black-clad figures. Suddenly, the intense heat melted away like ice and snow, instantly causing the black-clad figures to cough up large amounts of blood. Their clothes, hair, and even the pores on their bodies were burned away in an instant. Following that, their skin, flesh, the moisture within their bodies, and even the bones throughout their entire frames were incinerated layer by layer. In the end, everything turned to ashes. He specifically separated the storage rings from the black-clad men's hands. Gazing at the few storage rings floating in front of Zhang Yunqi, both Zhang Yunqi and everyone else assumed that Chu Longha would toss them to Zhang Yunqi. But in the end, Chu Longha simply wore them on his own hand. Zhang Yunqi was left utterly bewildered, feeling as though the script had taken an unexpected turn. Especially when Chu Longha, after putting on all 5 rings, revealed a sinister and eerie smile. And in the end he even struck a pose. Who could handle such a show-off move? However, the swift turn of events quickly proved him wrong, as Zhang Yunqi suddenly exclaimed urgently, "Young Uncle Master, watch out behind you!" Yet, faced with the sudden terrifying claw attack, the celestial lord of the Jade Lotus, Chu Longhe, remained not only calm and composed but also managed to reassure Zhang Yunqi in an extremely showy manner, saying, "Yunqi, don't be afraid. This chicken can't hurt you. Looking at it, don't you feel an urge to turn it into a whole roasted chicken?" At the very moment the golden-winged great rock's furious claw was about to descend, Chu Longhe struck the chicken's head with a lightning-fast move. Then with another kick he sent the golden-winged creature flying. Several feathers fell from the great rock's wings. This is impossible. My wings are covered with feathers harder than black iron, like peerless divine blades. Yet they were actually cracked by this human cultivator's kick. The golden-winged great rock was still dazed from the blow when Chu Longhe lifted his foot once more. Terrified, the golden-winged great rock hurriedly feigned composure and declared fiercely, "You have enraged me. You shall be the first divine transformation stage cultivator I slay since descending upon the eastern desolation." Then with a swift movement, it unleashed the celestial rock 9 cuts. Seeing this, Chu Longhe sneered coldly and said, "Heh, so it's actually the golden-winged great rock, the royal clan of the Southland's rock clan. Scared, aren't you? But it's too late for regrets now." "Regret?" Chu Longhe said with a face full of disdain. He licked the corner of his mouth and said cheerfully, "Such fine ingredients. How should I prepare them? It's really giving me a headache. Forget it, I'll just catch them first and then figure it out." He dodged swiftly, initially avoiding a strike from the celestial rock. 9 cuts. Witness my flame body tempering manual. Chu Longhe's true chi transformed abruptly, unleashing a massive hand seal. Initially 1,000 meters away from the golden-winged great rock, the hand seal closed the distance in the blink of an eye. Staring at the hand seal, which was twice its own size, the golden-winged great rock was utterly bewildered. Only after being pinned down by Chu Longhe's chicken-catching great hand seal did it realize with horror that escape was impossible. In a panic, the golden-winged great rock cried out, "No! How is this possible? Old Taoist, you actually know the spatial divine ability. Great heaven-holding hand seal." What great heaven-holding hand seal? This move is called the chicken-catching hand seal. Come here, you little chick. The golden-winged great rock, still spouting threats, said, How dare you kill me? I am the son of the 3rd elder of the rock clan. If you kill me, my father will never let you go." Chu Longhe then sneered and asked, "Your father? How old is he?" "My father is 5,000 years old, with 1 foot already in the sage realm. How dare you harm me? Aren't you afraid of starting a war between the rock clan and the epic divine sky sanctuary?" Upon hearing this, Chu Longhe sighed and murmured in a seemingly unrelated manner, 5,000-year-old chicken meat probably isn't very tender anymore, is it? It seems that once your father shows up, the only use for him will be in making soup," he remarked, ignoring the golden-winged great rock's stunned expression as he began plucking the feathers. Then, amid the golden-winged great rock's agonizing screams, feathers began to fall one after another. In no time a freshly plucked, bald little chick was ready. The golden-winged great rock was utterly dumbfounded, especially when it saw Chu Longhe's demonic face, drooling uncontrollably, and heard him repeatedly mentioning how tender its meat was, even planning to roast it whole. The golden-winged great rock's entire heart trembled, its chicken head beaded with dense sweat, and its eyes widened into perfect circles. Here it comes, here it comes. The fragrant roasted eagle is here. Chu Longhe is enthusiastically roasting a Hakka kiln chicken. No, it should be called a kiln eagle. As for the remaining few men in black, who were already trembling with fear and unease, Chu Longhe simply said calmly, "Since you neither attacked nor fled, I'll let you off if each of you leaves behind 1,000,000 spirit stones. Otherwise, you'll end up just like those who turned to ashes earlier." As soon as the words were spoken, several bags of spirit stones flew over from the sky. Great. These are more than enough for this old Taoist to use for several months. Fellow cultivators, you're welcome to keep following my disciples from the sanctuary next time. As long as you carry enough spirit stones with you, this old Taoist definitely won't make things difficult for you. But next time, please don't follow my niece disciple's daughter. After all, she's a girl. Feel free to keep tailing those 2 silly lads, Zhang Yunting and Fang Chong. It's fine to give them a good beating." After saying that, he ignored Zhang Yunqi's embarrassed expression, handed him a chicken leg and said, "Yunqi, you're quite injured. Have some chicken to replenish your strength. Then he casually inquired whether Zhang Yunqi had truly found the celestial dragon and tiger pendant, as this sacred artifact could potentially revive the epic divine sky sanctuary. Zhang Yunqi said nothing more and directly took out the celestial dragon and tiger pendant, saying, "Uncle Master, look, the dragon and tiger pendant is right here. Since you've come, I entrust it to your care." Although Chu Longhe initially declined politely, but in the end, he couldn't resist Zhang Yunqi's persistent urging. "Since you're so determined, Yunqi, I'll reluctantly lend a hand. No one will snatch it away from me, Uncle Master. After finishing this little chick, we'll set off immediately to return to the epic divine sky sanctuary." Upon their return to the epic divine sky sanctuary, Zhang Yunqi knelt in the Saint Master Hall and reported, "Father, I have fulfilled the mission and brought back the sacred artifact." However, when the celestial dragon and tiger pendant emerged, the divine firmament origin shattered and merged into the bodies of several destined individuals. If these chosen individuals cultivate our sect's thunder method, they are bound to achieve remarkable mastery. I believe we should dispatch someone to guide them into the sanctuary for cultivation. Upon hearing this, Divine Sky Saint Master Zhang Longyuan agreed without hesitation. As Zhang Yunqi rose to take his leave, only then did a voice sound from behind Zhang Longyuan. "Junior brother, you've been practicing that evil art again, haven't you? Sigh, just to complete the body into tribulation. You're willing to sever all emotions and desires?" Zhang Longyuan turned around with an expressionless face and glared as he spoke. "Yunqi said the celestial dragon and tiger pendant is with senior brother?" That glare made Chu Longhe break out in a cold sweat. But then he still grinned mischievously and said, "Yes, but if you want me to hand over the celestial dragon and tiger pendant to you, you must agree to a few conditions. The first condition is to give senior brother a smile first," he said, even demonstrating by grinning widely himself. Zhang Longyuan was stunned for a moment before speaking. "Senior brother, please don't joke around." But Chu Longhe said with a serious face, "Didn't you cultivate the Sutra of Heaven Mending just to complete the body into tribulation? Now that Yunqi has retrieved the dragon and tiger pendant, are you still going to continue cultivating that evil art?" Upon hearing this, Zhang Longyuan simply replied expressionlessly, "Senior brother, you don't understand. I have already glimpsed a new realm. One path of cultivation cannot produce two emperors. I intend to forge a new path." Hearing this, Chu Longhe shook his head and slowly walked away, muttering to himself, "In that case, you should go ahead and forge your new path. To prevent you from losing control, I'll hold on to this pair of jade pendants for now, senior brother. That way, if you ever become unrecognizable, these pendants won't be lost again." Zhang Longyuan could no longer remain seated at this point, and was the first to show a faint smile. Following that, he even burst into laughter. Divine Sky Saint Master Zhang Longyuan, who hadn't laughed for over 100 years, has now abandoned his principles for the celestial dragon and tiger pendant. This is only the first condition. The second condition is that I saved your daughter. According to senior brother, my rate in the black market is 1 million spirit stones per job. He even mentioned that a single rock chicken leg Zhang Yunqi had eaten earlier should be accounted for at 500,000 spirit stones. Zhang Longyuan cut him off directly. "I'll give you 15 million spirit stones, senior brother. Please state the third condition." "Great. Junior brother, you're truly straightforward." Then Chu Longhe brought up the third point. The condition is that he wants to select another spiritual peak to cultivate. However, this condition was flatly rejected by Zhang Longyuan, because Chu Longhe, obsessed with cultivating the epic flame manual, had already drained the spiritual stone mine of his own spiritual peak, turning it into a barren mountain. Helpless, Chu Longhe finally pursed his lips and said, "The last condition is quite simple. The ancestral rule of our sect is to retrieve the dragon and tiger pendant and complete the Thunder Emperor manual. The destined one can serve as the sanctuary saint. Junior brother, you already have both a son and a daughter, and you've even taken that kid Fengchang as your disciple. It's not too much to ask for the destined one who finds the dragon and tiger pendant to become my disciple, is it?" Zhang Longyuan was instantly speechless. "Damn it, you alone can drain an entire spiritual stone mine. If you take on another disciple, my entire epic divine sky sanctuary will probably turn into a wasteland." Without a second thought, he pulled out a map. "Senior brother, here's the map of the spiritual peaks. Which one catches your eye?" This infuriated Chu Longhe. "Junior brother, what do you mean by this? You'd rather give senior brother a spiritual peak than let me take on a disciple?" Zhang Longyuan slammed the armrest and declared, "Senior brother, although I have cultivated the Sutra of Heaven Mending and severed the 7 emotions and 6 desires, my wisdom remains intact. After taking a moment to compose himself, he tactfully explained, "You don't understand this person's unique circumstances." According to Yunxi, this so-called Outyin immortal master is less than 20 years old, but possesses astonishing skills in detecting spiritual veins and determining their quality. You should know that spiritual arts are even more difficult than immortal cultivation. Many profound, master-level techniques for detecting spiritual veins and determining their quality can only be performed by those at the nascent soul stage. A teenager of only 16 or 17 years old, how could they possibly be skilled in such advanced spiritual arts? Not only did they not make a single mistake in nearly 100 instances of selecting and opening mines, but they also unearthed treasures like the 7 treasures immortal gourd and the celestial dragon and tiger pendant. Back in the day, the purple mansion saint entered the spiritual ore and casually picked 3 pieces of ore, which ended up yielding the golden body fruit, the dragon halberd of the square heaven, and the sutra of the immortal nirvana. Therefore, I believe this young man's fate is even more formidable than that of the purple mansion saint. It can no longer be described merely as son of fate. How could there possibly be such an exaggerated fate in this world? This completely defies all logic. So senior brother, you should read more often. Never measure the thinking of those with a colossal fate by the standards of ordinary fate-bearers. These books document the lives of all great fate-bearers in Eastern desolation over the past 10,000 years. Some fell off cliffs and inherited the legacies of ancient emperors. Some were captured by monsters and ended up sleeping with them during their bloodline evolution. And there are those who picked up an ordinary ring, only to find it contained the remnant soul of a quasi-emperor. These individuals share a common trait. They all have smooth sailing journeys. If you dare to seize their opportunities relying solely on your higher cultivation level, there's a high probability you'll end up being defeated instead. This is what you realize after studying the life stories of 1,000 great masters. Some people are inherently favored by the great Tao. Then it doesn't make sense. If this kid is so important, why won't you let me teach him? Precisely because he's so important, he absolutely cannot become your disciple. This statement made Chu Longhua quite displeased. Zhang, are you certain you've severed all emotions? But in the end, Zhang Longyuan still proposed a more moderate solution. That is, to first bring the child over. Let him choose his own master. Then I'll first go to the great empire to build a good relationship with this kid. Then use a mix of threats and incentives to establish a master-disciple bond with him. Cook the rice before it's ready. Once I take on this obedient disciple, I, the old Taoist, can occasionally benefit from his fate too. The more Chu Longhua thought about it, the more pleased he felt. Without a word, he directly passed on the legacy to Zhang Longyuan. Then he happily went off to recruit disciples. But at that moment, Zhang Longyuan also revealed a sly smile. A saint must marry a saintess, and Zhang Yunxi was Zhang Longyuan's daughter. The 6th prince lay unconscious under the crooked neck tree for 2 full days before finally waking up. At that moment, everyone was in the palace of the great empire holding a farewell ceremony for him. Impressive, Your Highness. To have successfully achieved foundation establishment at the young age of 18. Truly a genius, a peerless talent. Your Highness, the 6th prince. In just a few months, Your Highness has grown even more dignified and exceptionally handsome. My daughter is only 16 and has always admired Your Highness. She hopes to serve by your side and even said that, should Your Highness give the word, her son could become your attendant at any time. At that moment, the entire hall was enveloped in a harmonious atmosphere of flattery. One can only wonder how they would have reacted if they had known that the 6th prince had been hung up and beaten for 2 days and 2 nights. And now, the 6th prince was lamenting that his 2-day coma had caused him to miss the myriad spirits' garden. Meanwhile, a peerless immortal master was also feeling quite frustrated. I wonder if he would still feel frustrated knowing that he was being hung up and beaten those 2 days. Just at that moment, Shan Xiao, the monarch of the great empire, also arrived at the banquet scene. He generously offered to fulfill any wish the 6th prince might have. And I, having just arrived after buying a gift for my 6th brother. But why are all the ministers staring at me with looks of disbelief? Why is this servant looking at me as if he's seen a ghost? Even 6th brother finds it hard to believe. You unlucky child coming to my farewell banquet, how can I set off with peace of mind? Of course I cannot truly empathize with all of this. Because with my current refreshing and stunning elegance, a single smile can captivate cities and enchant nations. Instantly I've once again captured the hearts of a wave of adoring fans. Gazing at this rather ordinary-looking emperor, who happens to be my cheap father in this life I've traveled to. Although as a time traveler, I hold no particular affection for this cheap father, the body and its features are inherited from one's parents. I must still uphold the proper etiquette that is expected. With that thought, I cupped my hands and bowed, saying, Your son pays respects to His Majesty the Emperor. Shen Xiao couldn't help but be overwhelmed with emotions for a moment. Thinking back to the child whom Lan had saved with her life, now grown into an elegant young man, she would surely smile with joy in the afterlife if she knew. I had no idea about the sudden surge of emotions in my cheap old man. I just slightly cupped my hands and said, I heard that sixth brother is heading to the Great White Celestial Grotto for immortal cultivation, so I've come to see you off. This made Shen Xiao so pleased that he immediately agreed, but the sixth prince was not happy about it. He quickly forced an awkward smile and explained that he needed to attend to the guests. Let him sit with the second prince. The second prince, Shunlong, cleared his throat lightly and said, The sixth brother and the 13th brother share a deep bond. They should spend more time together. As your elder brother, I shall entertain the guests on your behalf. Second brother, sixth brother, I am the youngest, so let me host the guests. As soon as these words were spoken, the entire hall of guests fell silent instantly, quietly helping themselves to the dishes. They truly practice no talking during meals, no speaking while resting. The nobility indeed have high standards of conduct. This scene was also witnessed by the old monarch Shan Xiao. After some thought, he ultimately decided to let the three of us brothers sit together. I naturally accepted with great joy and delight. Once the banquet began, I was the first to speak up. Sixth brother, I really shouldn't have been late to see you off this time. So to express my apology, I have specially and carefully prepared a gift for you. This made the sixth prince instantly change his expression and hurriedly wave his hands in refusal. But if brothers don't show some gesture, can they still be called brothers? Sixth brother, see if you like it. Hearing this, the sixth prince had no choice but to reluctantly accept it. Then trembling, he slowly unwrapped the package. You're so engrossed, sixth brother, it seems you really value my gift. So this is actually a top-tier bright silver flying sword magical artifact. 13th brother, where did you get such a treasure? It must be worth at least 30,000 spirit stones. I knew sixth brother would ask that, I replied playfully. Oh, this sword? I found it. Found it? Damn. Found it? With your luck. How could you possibly stumble upon something this good? Wait, could this be a defective item discarded by some immortal cultivator after use? While the sixth prince was lost in his wild imagination, he thought, if I use this flying sword for sword flight someday, it won't suddenly self-destruct, will it? A purple sun suddenly appeared in the sky above the palace. A figure suddenly descended from the sky. Who is this person? Such an intimidating aura. I am no match for this person right now. At that moment, the sixth prince cupped his hands and said, Master, why have you come in person? So this is the Venerable Xiang from the Great White Celestial Grotto. But at this moment, Venerable Xiang wore an expression full of pride and contentment. Because the resonance of the Great White Celestial Grotto token is right here, and aside from Shen Ao, who holds the most potential, there is no other man recognized by Lotus. At this thought, Xiang Venerable laughed heartily and said, My guess was right, my disciple. It is you, it is indeed you. My good disciple, I never expected you to possess such skills. It truly brings me great joy. The sixth prince looked utterly bewildered. Master, I don't quite understand what you're referring to. Venerable Xiang instantly feigned a look of displeasure. My dear disciple, stop pretending to be clueless. Have you forgotten what you did to that girl, Li Lotus, in the Myriad Spirits Garden? What? What did I do to Li Lotus in the Myriad Spirits Garden? I only remember losing control and suffering amnesia for 2 days there. Could it be that I did something extraordinary during those 2 days? Could it be that senior sister and I? Although it seems like he thought of something. But the sixth prince's face flushed crimson, and he stammered again. Master, what are you talking about? Why can't I understand? Must I spell it out for you? Now that girl is clamoring that she'll marry no one but you. The master told you. If you can really win over Lotus, achieving nascent soul from a shattered core will be a piece of cake. After saying that, he even gave a thumbs up to the sixth prince. Xiang Venerable's move made the girls around once again go wild, double-tapping likes for the sixth prince. However, as the male lead, I was completely baffled. I thought that with the disguise I could act recklessly without a care. Little did I expect their people would track me all the way to the imperial palace. No way, I gotta get out of here fast. But just then my cheap old man grabbed my shoulder, stopping me from leaving. He also said he would later plead with the immortal master to allow both me and sixth brother to join the Great White Celestial Grotto, hoping this would help me defy fate and break this cursed destiny. But I simply couldn't take it in, my mind was fixated on how they had found this place. Could it be that they had installed a GPS tracker on me? Wait, GPS positioning. Could it be the Great White Celestial Grottos? Oh my god, it's indeed the same token. I'm shocked. And looking at Sixth Brother's expression, with his eyes glowing red and lost in wild fantasies, I could only silently think, Sixth Brother, you're being way too reckless without knowing anything. I'd better put this token aside for now. I think it's best to lay low and not show my face. After all, in this perilous immortal cultivation world, it never hurts to be cautious. At that moment, the vast abyss ring trembled slightly. What's happening? Both the token and the jade water sword inside the vast abyss ring are trembling. Suddenly, Lee Lotus pushed the door open and exclaimed excitedly, Brother Shen Lotus is here to see you. Oh no, another one's here. This is just great. Just then Venerable Xiang grabbed Lee Lotus and scolded, Lotus, how could you sneak out again? Your senior brother doesn't know, does he? But suddenly noticing Lee Lotus balancing a pot of flowers on her head, he was instantly dumbfounded once more. That's the top-grade spiritual orchid pot that senior brother loves the most. Could it be that this girl not only ran away from home secretly but also plucked this spiritual orchid? The more I think about it, the more I feel something's off. Senior brother is definitely going to be furious. He's bound to take his anger out on Shen Ao, who indirectly caused all of this. In the end, he could only silently pray for Shen Ao. Meanwhile, Lee Lotus finally discovered her young uncle master, and learned that he had come for her brother Shun. He immediately exclaimed excitedly, Then young uncle master, have you found him? Xiang Venerable initially started off by directly entering the mode of speaking nonsense with a serious face. Then he pulled the sixth prince over and said proudly, Lotus, look, who is this? Lee Lotus was instantly dumbfounded. While she was still carefully pondering over who this ordinary-looking man introduced by young uncle master could be, the sixth prince scratched his head and spoke earnestly, Senior Sister Lotus, although I don't remember anything, please rest assured, if I have truly done anything to wrong you, Your Highness, I will definitely take responsibility for you. Is this what they call being eager to help and happily becoming a father? Lee Lotus was so full of questions at that moment that she couldn't understand a single word. As for such a good deed, Lotus clearly expressed her rejection with disgust. But thinking that his intuition couldn't possibly be wrong, just as Venerable Xiang was puzzling over it, Lee Lotus suddenly shouted angrily, You've got the wrong person. This is not Brother Shun. Oh no, the sixth prince is going to take the blame for me again. Young uncle master, you've got the wrong person. Immediately made his face flush bright red. Then from red to green, his teeth grinding audibly. How dare you deceive your master like this? Oh my god, the master is furious, and the sixth prince is stunned. He coughed repeatedly, expressing his confusion. Didn't you say that Lotus Fairy would only marry me? Why are you backing out of the engagement when I'm willing to take on the responsibility? This remark only made Venerable Xiang's face turn from green to black. Unfilial disciple. Still making excuses. Why did you impersonate the Outyin Immortal Master? Your Highness, are you saying that I impersonated the Shen OP Immortal Master? So, does that mean there's a story between the Shen OP Immortal Master and the Lotus Fairy? Is it just because my name is too similar to Shen OP Immortal Master that my master misunderstood? Now I'm doomed. In a moment of frantic thought, the sixth prince pieced together the entire cause and effect. My future was once bright, but if I were to cause my master to lose face in front of so many people in the Great Hall because of my own actions, if this isn't handled properly, then I could even be directly expelled from the sect. The more he thought about it, the more terrified he felt, even experiencing a chilling scalp and a splitting headache. It seems there's no choice but to take this last resort. At this moment, the blame must be shouldered. Realizing everything, the sixth prince immediately knelt down, repeatedly bowing to his master in apology, taking all the blame upon himself. In the end, he even closed his eyes, expressing his willingness to accept punishment and begging only for his master's forgiveness. The originally gloomy and dark expression on Xiang Venerable's face gradually faded away. Then he waved his hand and said, Who told you to be my disciple? As your master, I'm not an unreasonable person. Very well, very well. Step aside for now. Then he resumed the discussion with Lee Lotus about the matter because according to the positioning, this was definitely the right place. Lee Lotus also mentioned that her own sensing pointed to this location as well. And I started to sense that something seemed increasingly off. Just as I was about to make a quick escape, suddenly, Lee Lotus and his nephew joined forces to cast a spell once again. My vast abyss ring began to tremble violently. Then the token and the jade water sword flew out directly from within. It's over. Instantly, the dazzling green light illuminated the entire hall. Young Uncle Master is over there. The two of them instantly flashed in front of me. Damn, I'm speechless too. I originally wanted to explain something first. Lee Lotus suddenly saw stars before her eyes. It's him, it's him, it's him. Instantly, she pounced like a fierce tiger descending the mountain. Don't you dare come any closer. The crazy Lotus girl wanted to play poker with me right then and there. Can you not be so impatient? We're in public. But now Lee Lotus actually recognized me at a glance. It seems my disguise skills aren't that great. This prince is being exposed right here, waiting online, quite urgent. Yet, the onlookers are now imagining that the second miss of Great White Celestial Grotto personally carried a flower pot all the way to find her husband. Xiang Venerable was also chattering away on the side, feeling quite pleased with himself, even going so far as to firmly believe that I am Shen OP Immortal Master. I had originally wanted to struggle a bit, but faced with Lee Lotus's impatience, like that of a resentful woman, I'm not pretending anymore, laying my cards on the table. I'm completely letting go. It's just that this junior has already formed a good connection with the Great White Celestial Grotto. Why must the Immortal Master remain so fixated? But this scene left the sixth prince utterly bewildered. What exactly happened? Who am I? But I, the Crown Prince, am clearly the once-in-a-century genius of the royal family. And the 13th prince, he has been the ultimate jinx since childhood, the kind who gets struck by lightning just walking down the street. So, 13th brother, is this how you send me off at my farewell banquet? Isn't this just stealing the spotlight from me? Why is it that I, as a prince, have to work so hard, cultivating non-stop all year round, just to barely earn my master's approval? While my 13th brother, just because he's handsome, has won the heart of the Lotus Fairy. The intense resentment made him dig his nails deep into his flesh without even realizing it. The escalating fierce resentment made the sixth prince blame all the faults on me. Even now, his eyes are glowing red with fury. His face darkened as he stared intently at me. Meanwhile, Niner inside the prayer beads in my hand also reminded me. Master, I sense a strong aura of resentment. And this resentment is emanating from your sixth brother. Sister Yunqi Li, his shout completely shattered the original tranquility. Zhang Yunqi's exclamation, so it's you, and Lotus's response left me utterly shocked. Yunqi Lotus Fairy, do you know each other? It turns out that the 12 sanctuaries and the 36 celestial grottos have intricate relationships, with most core disciples being friends within the circle. Therefore, Zhang Yunqi and Li Lotus not only know each other, but are also childhood best friends. Zhang Yunqi, with a slightly stern expression, asked Li Lotus why she was there at that moment. Li Lotus, however, quickly waved her hands to signal that Xiang young Uncle Master meant no harm. Zhang Yunqi was momentarily stunned, looking down at his own right fist that had long been itching for action, unable to believe that the one he had just sent flying with a single punch was actually an elder from the Great White Celestial Grotto. Then she thought to herself, this must be just an ordinary elder from the Great White Celestial Grotto, in which case there was nothing more to be said. Besides, that guy earlier looked like he was about to attack Shen Tian, so it was perfectly reasonable for me to strike first. Zhang Yunqi, who felt more and more convinced that she had done nothing wrong, cleared her throat and said, since it's a misunderstanding, let's just leave it at that. Then, in a tone reminiscent of an elder, she lightly scolded Li Lotus. You've planted a 7 treasures immortal gourd seed. Yet instead of tending to it properly, what are you doing here? Upon hearing this, Li Lotus immediately blushed with a mix of shyness and awkwardness, stammering as she explained that she had come looking for Brother Shen. As she spoke, she excitedly lifted a pot of greenery, proudly declaring, this is the fruit of love between Brother Shen and me. Upon hearing this, Zhang Yunqi's face instantly darkened halfway. Who could possibly handle such a remark? I quickly explained that all of this was her own imagination and had nothing to do with me. Upon seeing this, Zhang Yunqi calmly said, did you hear that? But Li Lotus was not pleased and immediately flared up, shouting, Brother Shen, aren't we engaged? What? I had intended to explain further, but unexpectedly, Zhang Yunqi stepped in front of me, shielding me directly. Then with an overwhelming aura she calmly stated, now, it's gone. She ignored Li Lotus's look of astonishment. Zhang Yunqi's aura suddenly surged once more as he calmly stated, Lotus Shen Tian has retrieved the forbidden chapter of the Emperor's scripture, Body into Tribulation, for the epic Divine Sky Sanctuary. According to the sanctuary's ancestral teachings, he will assume the position of saint in the epic Divine Sky Sanctuary. Moreover, although not particularly willing, according to our sect's ancestral teachings, as the epic Divine Sky Saintess, I must marry the saint. What the fuck? Not to mention everyone was taken aback by this scene. Even the king and the sixth prince were momentarily stunned. Lee Lotus's mind went completely blank. Only shopkeeper song screamed at the top of his lungs. Isn't this a clear case of promotion and a raise? Becoming the CEO and marrying a beautiful, wealthy woman? Some even exclaimed in disbelief. Holy cow, they're fighting over a man. Only I couldn't help but tremble uncontrollably. What are they doing? The sixth prince was so furious that he nearly shattered all his teeth. He had thought how honorable it would be to become a true disciple under the tutelage of a great white celestial grotto elder. But now, his revered master was actually sent flying with a single punch from the young epic divine sky saintess. What's more, she even intends to take the initiative to marry the 13th prince. What's even more infuriating is that she's not only refusing the bride price but also offering the position of saint. 13th brother, is he truly a calamity sent by the heavens? The sixth prince has broken down. Oh my god. One Lee Lotus is already enough to make one's scalp tingle. How can anyone handle another one like this? Especially Li Longsong, the Siscon, and the Sword Lord of the Long River, the doting father. No matter how I try to avoid it, it seems like death is my only fate. Now they're even sending over some saint title, and it's a buy one get one free deal with the saintess. Then those prodigies in the sanctuary who like Zhang Yunqi will definitely try every means to kill me. To think that despite my extreme caution, I still encountered Xiang Venerable bullying the weak with his strength. If I had taken in Zhang Yunqi, wouldn't I have been instantly surrounded and killed by those at the divine transformation stage? Feeling more and more uneasy, I quickly clasped my hands and declined Zhang Yunqi's kind offer, humbly stating that I was truly unworthy of the position of saint. Then, with an expression of pure concern for others, I advised Zhang Yunqi not to compromise himself because of any ancestral teachings. Most importantly, I had made a vow that I would never enter into a Dao partnership in this lifetime, unless I reached the nascent soul stage. There was no need for Fairy to feel troubled. Upon hearing this, Zhang Yunqi fell into silence for a moment. Everyone thought I had lost my mind, turning down such a rare and extraordinary opportunity. Some even gritted their teeth, tears streaming down their faces, convinced that I had been infected by bad luck, clouding my judgment. And just at that moment, Xiang Venerable suddenly placed his hand on my shoulder from behind. Then with a hint of smugness he remarked, "Since little friend Shen has made it clear, you no longer need to abide by the ancestral teachings. Then let this venerable one take you, young friend, back to the great white celestial grotto to meet my senior brother." Zhang Yunqi was immediately displeased and retorted with great disdain, "A mere elder of the great white celestial grotto, what do you take the ancestral precepts of our sanctuary for? Since the ancestors of the sanctuary established this ancestral precept, it is a commitment that our sanctuary must fulfill. No matter how reserved I, the saintess, may be, I must never betray the sect. Venerable Xiang, by saying such things, do you intend to compete with our epic divine sky sanctuary for the saint?" As she spoke, Zhang Yunqi gathered a sphere of lightning in her palm once more. Golden flames instantly enveloped his entire body, his aura rising layer by layer. Xiang Venerable was so frightened that cold sweat broke out on his forehead, and he immediately backed down in fear. Then, he suddenly removed the token of the great white celestial grotto from his waist, respectfully requesting senior brother to manifest. With a furious roar, the token immediately hovered in the air on its own, surrounded by surging purple light. Then a man with a face full of stubble slowly emerged. This was actually the Long River Sword Lord, Li Kanglin. The moment he appeared, a surge of purple light radiated around him, exuding an imposing aura. Facing Zhang Yunqi, the innate constitution of the Grand Five Elements Divine Yin-Yang Primordial Thunder Origin, Li Kanglin also offered a calm and composed critique, exuding the demeanor of a true master. However, upon spotting the flower pot behind Lee Lotus, his eyes instantly widened in astonishment. Then, as if struck by another thought, he let out a helpless sigh. But then, with eyes blazing red, he roared furiously, "Come out! Oh my god, they've come knocking! Only a fool would step out now." Just as I was trembling with anxiety, my teeth chattering uncontrollably, Zhang Yunqi stepped forward calmly and said, "Changhe, young uncle, Master Shen Tian is already a saint of our epic divine sky sanctuary. As a senior at the divine transformation stage, it would be inappropriate for you to trouble our sect's saint like this. If word gets out, it wouldn't reflect well on you." Continuing from last time, faced with Zhang Yunqi's relentless pressure, Li Kanglin laughed heartily. He sneered disdainfully and said lightly, "Why should I care about others' opinions? The epic divine sky sanctuary has always been on good terms with our sect. Since he is the current saint of your epic divine sky, I shall take him back to the great white celestial grotto and carefully instruct him on behalf of Saint Master Senior Brother for a while before sending him back. After saying this, he couldn't help but let out a sinister, eerie laugh. Upon hearing this, Zhang Yunqi spoke again with an expressionless face. So, young Uncle Master Changhe, you are not planning to honor this request? To this, Li Kanglin was even more dismissive, bluntly stating, your father might be qualified to say that, but you still have a long way to go. These words made Zhang Yunqi clench his fists tightly, his face clouded over. For a moment, he was at a loss for words to refute. Just then, a bright light suddenly flashed above. Can I say it's okay? A figure suddenly emerged slowly from the spatial rift above. This was actually the celestial lord of the Jade Lotus, Chu Longhe. Long time no see, second junior brother. Chu Longhe let out a sinister chuckle. Li Kanglin was momentarily taken aback, then somewhat awkwardly greeted Chu Longhe. But Chu Longhe wasn't having any of it. With a sinister chuckle he replied, not so great, just broke. Hearing this, Li Kanglin immediately felt the urge to back off. Without another word, he immediately enveloped himself in true qi, ready to make a swift exit, the best strategy being to run. However, noticing something unusual, Chu Longhe's expression turned serious. He snorted coldly and instantly moved to block the way, saying, it's been centuries since I've seen a cockroach, junior brother, yet you're still this cautious. However, cockroach junior brother, you probably don't know that this kid Shen Tian is the closed-door disciple that senior brother has taken a liking to. However, Li Kanglin didn't even bother with these and immediately turned to run, leaving Chu Longhe utterly dumbfounded. Once he snapped back to reality, Chu Longhe swiftly caught up to Li Kanglin and sneered, after attacking my beloved disciple, senior brother, do you think you can just walk away without leaving some compensation, cockroach junior brother? As he spoke, he reached out a hand directly, causing Li Kanglin's expression to turn frantic. Left with no choice, he hurriedly turned around, forming hand seals to cast a spell. Boundless River Sword Qi. However, facing Li Kanglin's awe-inspiring sword Qi, Chu Longhe chuckled softly, raised his hand to form a seal, and instantly Azure True Qi surged through his entire body. As he spoke, he couldn't resist licking his lips with thirst before shouting, Epic Flame Divine Art. 8-Direction Devour. At that moment, a figure appeared before Chu Longhe. A massive Cyan Maw emerged. In one gulp it swallowed all the sword Qi. That massive Cyan Flame Maw actually devoured the sword Qi. Seeing this, Li Kanglin's hair stood on end instantly. Realizing he was no match, Li Kanglin turned and fled without a second thought. Of course, before leaving, he didn't forget to put on a calm front and drop a fierce line. Chu Longhe, if my true self were here, I would surely battle you to the end. However, Li Kanglin slipped away, leaving behind a bewildered Xiang Venerable. At that moment, the large cyan mouth unceremoniously swallowed him whole. Afterward it couldn't help but chew a bit and lick its lips, so delicious. Then, as if spitting out a melon seed shell, it spat out the completely stripped Xiang Venerable. Covered in saliva, Xiang Venerable collapsed to the ground in a daze, muttering incessantly, this is too humiliating. To think that I, the esteemed Xiang Venerable of the Great White Celestial Grotto, was first slammed against the wall like a fly, and now stripped bare as if being spat out like a seed shell. In the end, he could only slink away in utter dejection. Even the sixth prince, upon witnessing this scene, felt deeply distressed and disheartened. He clenched his fists tightly, his teeth grinding with a sharp, audible grit, deeply anxious about whether his master could emerge from the shadows. In the end, he still attributed all the misfortune to his 13th brother. Seeing sixth brother's gaze, filled with what seemed like the hatred of a stolen love, I was completely stunned. In order to go together to the epic divine sky sanctuary, Li Lotus even went so far as to act cute and coquettish toward Zhang Yunqi. She even suddenly called out to me in a startled manner, what is this little girl up to? So this is why the girl is so full of energy. It turns out she wanted to go with me to the epic divine sky sanctuary for cultivation. Oh my, not to mention whether I agree or not. Upon hearing this, Zhang Yunqi immediately bristled with anger and scolded her, telling her to go home quickly. However, just by looking at Li Lotus's expression, it was clear that this was basically impossible. Moreover, Li Lotus's second uncle is one of the 9 divine transformation stage elders of the epic divine sky sanctuary. Therefore, Li Lotus decisively rejected Zhang Yunqi's commanding suggestion. But as soon as the words fell, a spatial wormhole appeared above. A colossal hand reached down and seized Li Lotus, It turned out to be Xiang Venerable, though now he was clad only in a rag to cover his shame. Yet his dignified demeanor remained undiminished, with hands calmly clasped behind his back, exuding confidence and composure. Then with a single scroll, he whisked Li Lotus and the sixth prince away from the scene. This finally allowed me to secretly breathe a sigh of relief. That very night, various versions of my story spread throughout the great empire. Only I lay sprawled on the bed and fell asleep immediately. Yet even in sleep it was filled with nightmares. When the airship from Epic Divine Sky Sanctuary came to pick us up the next day, my loyal fans, including Shopkeeper Song, were fortunate enough to be invited to join the ranks of Epic Divine Sky Sanctuary. Yet I myself had not yet spoken. Shopkeeper Song immediately launched into a barrage of words at me, relentlessly bombarding me until I was completely dumbfounded. Especially when he broke down in tears, prostrating himself on the ground, and kept swearing with conviction that he would follow me forever. Damn, even I almost thought I was the leader of some kind of organization. With just these four, if it weren't for the divine primordial thunder essence they possess, they probably wouldn't even be accepted as outer sect disciples. Even Zhang Yunqi couldn't help but sigh deeply, facepalming. Therefore, she reminded me to quickly resolve the matter of the Immortal Master cult, as the Epic Divine Sky Sanctuary only permits independent organizations, not independent sects. I completely agree with that. After all, if I were to bring these four along, wouldn't they just attract all the animosity toward me? To that, I can only say let's leave it to senior sister Yunqi to handle. Zhang Yunqi pondered for a moment and thought that since my name is Shen Tian, it would be best to add a character Tian, meaning sky or heaven, to make it sound more imposing. Hearing this, the big guy immediately exclaimed excitedly, I know. To make it even more impressive, it should have Tan in the name. Then let's call it Celestial Court. Oh my god, I'm completely losing it. When I heard the words Celestial Court, my whole body instantly went numb. How dare our little three-no organization use a name like Celestial Court? I bet it won't even end up being called Celestial Court. It'll probably just turn into the Heaven's Punishment Organization instead. Shivering violently, I quickly raised my hand to stop them and said, Not appropriate. It's way too flashy. Hearing this, another little minion suggested, How about changing it to Celestial Master? What do you think of calling it the Celestial Master Organization? But Shopkeeper Song suddenly slapped his thigh and exclaimed, Immortal Master's real name is Shen Tian. In my humble opinion, reversing the name gives a homophone for Celestial God. How about we name our organization the Celestial God Organization? Celestial Master watches over with divine protection. It's truly noble beyond words. Wow, the Celestial God Organization? Shopkeeper Song, are you perhaps a time traveler yourself? Why not suggest calling it the Avengers Alliance instead? Feeling that they were getting more and more absurd, I quickly raised my hand to stop them and finally settled on the name Heaven's Favored Organization. After all, I also hope that heaven will favor the halo above my head, making it greener and greener. Otherwise, if I sit in Saint's position and get resented, I might end up being sacrificed. But as soon as I finished speaking, Shopkeeper Song excitedly jumped out, showering me with flattering and exaggerated compliments. Damn, why doesn't heaven just strike these guys with a bolt of lightning? They're not even human, they're like lightning rods standing right next to me. But as soon as that thought crossed my mind, Shopkeeper Song was struck by a golden thunderbolt. It turned out that this was caused by Zhang Yunqi's spell. At the same time, Zhang Yunqi also warned the group that once they entered the sanctuary, they must not speak recklessly, and even ended up scolding them. After saying that, she grabbed my hand and ran. As soon as we entered the room, Zhang Yunqi asked me how far I had progressed in my cultivation. But I definitely couldn't let senior sister know that I had mastered the Eyewater Divine Thunder so quickly. After all, the nail that sticks out gets hammered. Only when everyone thinks I'm weak and insignificant can I continue to develop discreetly, right? So I can only pretend to feel ashamed and admit that I haven't manifested any phenomena yet. Hearing this, Zhang Yunqi chuckled and comforted me, saying there was no need to be disappointed, as the Five Thunder Heavenly Manual is indeed profound and obscure, making it truly difficult to cultivate. At this, I just scratched my head guiltily and quickly agreed. However, Zhang Yunqi changed his tone and said, But there is indeed a shortcut. As is well known, the five elements mutually generate and restrain each other. G-metal generates Eyewater, which means that senior sister's G-metal Divine Thunder, according to the five elements, actually enhances me. After saying this, Zhang Yunqi once again shocked everyone by saying, Junior brother, let's dual cultivate. I feel like senior sister is being too good to me. It's just that it somewhat feels like she's making dirty jokes. At that moment, a sudden explosion echoed from the sea beneath the airship. Everyone was momentarily stunned and disoriented by the shock. Zhang Yunqi hurried out and shouted, "What happened?" He then found Chu Longhe and asked him why he had shut down the flying boat's defensive formation. To this, Chu Longhe seriously explained that he was afraid it would waste too many spiritual crystals. However, Zhang Yunqi understood that Chu Longhe's real intention was to secretly take away the spiritual crystal.